Hello, this is Whispers in the Rain. Welcome to tonight's story time, a collection of real stories pulled straight from the depths of Reddit. Dim the lights. Let the rain drown out the world beyond your walls. And as you listen, remember, these are the stories people swear are true. Comment below where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. You've scrolled far enough. Now close your eyes and let the whispers begin. Story 1 title, The Static Man. Reddit username. Ukosathica TV iz 1983. I've lived alone for most of my adult life, and I never thought much about silence until it started watching me. I worked the night shift at a data center. Rows of servers humming like a mechanical forest. The place is always cold, always sterile. It's the kind of job where no one really talks. That suits me fine. After work, I return to a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town, just far enough from streetlights to make the nights feel like a cave. My only real comfort is the soft hiss of the TV. I never change the channel. It's always on the same old local news station. It keeps me company, fills the space. About 3 weeks ago, something changed. I came home and the TV was on, but there was no picture, just static. I figured it was a glitch. I sat on the couch, tired, still in uniform, and stared at the screen, waiting for the sound of a broadcaster to return. Instead, I heard whispering, not the normal kind. Not like people murmuring. It was like the TV was breathing through voices, dozens of them overlapping, sighing, groaning in a quiet rhythm. I turned the TV off. The static didn't stop. Panicked, I unplugged it. Still, the sound lingered. That low, buzzing whispering seemed to come from behind the screen, like something trapped on the other side. I threw a blanket over it and tried to sleep. I told myself I was overtired, delirious. But the next night, it happened again. And the night after that, I started sleeping with earplugs. I even tried leaving the apartment. I drove to a motel 30 miles out, just for a single night's sleep. But I couldn't escape the feeling that something was watching me. Not following, watching, from somewhere I couldn't see. It got worse when I saw the face. It was maybe 5 nights ago. I was coming back from a late shift. I walked into the apartment and everything was normal. Lights off, TV off, quiet. I turned on the hallway light and looked up at the screen out of habit. And there he was, the man on the screen. His features were barely visible through the static, but his eyes were sharp, clear. He wasn't part of a broadcast. He wasn't distorted like a bad signal. He just stood there, watching me, his face shimmering behind the fuzz. Not moving. Not blinking. When I turned the TV off, the screen stayed on. I stared at the screen, remote clenched in my hand, thumb hovering over the power button I'd already pressed. The display wasn't just refusing to shut off, it was alive. The man's face stared through the static, grainy but focused. His head was tilted slightly, as if he were studying me, curious. I took a step closer and the static thinned. Not cleared, thinned. Enough to make out more of him. He wore something dark, a suit maybe, or a coat. But the way the image flickered made it look like his clothing moved independently, like smoke clinging to a figure. The worst part was his mouth. It was moving slowly, like he was speaking, but I couldn't hear anything over the crackle. Still, I swear I knew what he was saying. Let me in. I unplugged the TV again, and it finally went black. Not a slow fade, just instantly dark. I stood in the hallway, hands shaking, electricity humming in my ears. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I stayed up with every light on, scanning the apartment, waiting for something to change. It didn't. The static didn't return, and neither did the man. I thought maybe I imagined it, that maybe it was stress like some kind of visual migraine. But the next night, when I turned on the TV just to check, there he was again. No warning, no change in sound, just static, then his face. Closer. This time I noticed his mouth was no longer moving. It was stretched into a crooked smile, almost too wide. His lips didn't part, but his teeth were visible, white and jagged like broken porcelain. I dropped the remote and ran to the kitchen. I grabbed a knife. I don't know why, what could I stab? But it felt better than being empty-handed. When I returned, the screen was black again. I slept with the knife next to me. In the morning, the TV was back to normal. Channel running, Local news anchor chatting about school board elections like the world hadn't gone sideways. I was almost ready to laugh. Almost. That night, I invited my friend Nate over. He's a skeptical guy, a rationalist who thinks everything has an explanation if you dig deep enough. I figured maybe he'd tell me it was a wiring issue, maybe help me fix it. We waited. For 2 hours we sat on the couch, TV on, watching static, talking about anything but the screen. I felt crazy until Nate stiffened suddenly. "Did you see that?" he said. I looked up, and this time, the static didn't hide the man. He was standing right behind us. Nate shot up from the couch so fast he knocked over his drink. "What the hell was that?" he shouted, pointing at the screen. I was frozen. My eyes were locked on the static. I hadn't seen him move, hadn't even blinked, but I felt him. His presence was thicker now, like the room had a second atmosphere pressing in. The man's image loomed in the screen, not behind it. Like he'd stepped forward. We both backed away. I flipped the light switch on and off, unplugged the TV again, this time yanking the entire cord from the surge protector and throwing it across the room. Still, the screen stayed on. Not even brighter, just persistent, like it wanted us to see him. Then came a sound. Not a voice. Not quite. It started as a low vibration, a hum that built up pressure in the walls. Nate held his ears. I did too. The sound wasn't coming from the speakers. It was coming from inside the apartment. Like it was in the wiring, the air vents, the floorboards. It felt mechanical, wrong. Nate ran to the door. "We're leaving. Now." We grabbed our stuff and left without looking back. I slept at Nate's place that night. Well, tried to. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw static. Not darkness. Static. And behind it, just faint enough to ignore if I really tried, was the man's smile. The next morning, I begged Nate to go back with me. I didn't want to be alone. We returned to the apartment around noon in bright daylight. The TV was off. The plug lay exactly where I'd thrown it. For a moment, it felt normal. Like nothing had happened. Nate stayed silent as I plugged the TV back in. It blinked to life. Local news again. Nothing strange. I exhaled. Maybe it's over. Nate shook his head. Or maybe you're letting it in. His tone scared me more than the screen did. He looked serious. Pale. Like he knew something he wasn't saying. When I pressed him, he just shrugged and said he had a weird dream the night before. A dream where someone was whispering through a wall of white noise, telling him secrets. Promises. "You ever heard of a tulpa?" he asked. I shook my head. It's a thought form, a being made real through belief. People online say you can conjure them with enough focus. If something's watching you through that screen and you keep thinking about it, you think I made it? I laughed nervously. I think you gave it attention. Maybe that's enough. That night, I didn't turn the TV on. I read a book. I put on rain sounds. Anything to avoid static. But around 2 a.m., I woke to the TV humming on its own. The static man was now standing in my hallway. He wasn't on the screen this time. He was physically there, grainy and flickering like poor reception, but standing in the damn hallway. He didn't move, just stared, head tilted the same way I remembered from the TV. His features glitched, jerking every few seconds like someone dragging a mouse across a frozen screen. But his eyes were locked onto mine. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My body wouldn't let me. I just lay there, stiff under the covers, hoping I was still dreaming. The hallway light flickered behind him, like his presence disrupted the power. The static hum returned, louder than ever, vibrating through the air, making the walls tremble. I shut my eyes. When I opened them again, it was morning. He was gone. I checked the hallway. Nothing. No footprints. No strange marks. No lingering sound. But something had changed. The air felt wrong. Like a pressure had been released, but not completely. My apartment had a flavor now, a metallic aftertaste like copper and ash. I turned the TV around to face the wall. I even threw a sheet over it. It didn't help. I could still feel his presence like a weight on my chest. Nate didn't answer my text for 3 days. When he finally did, it was a single message. "Don't look at any screens. Please." I tried calling him. No answer. I drove to his apartment, knocked for 10 minutes straight. No response. But his car was out front and his lights were on. I knew he was in there. I left a note. "I'm worried. I think it's getting worse. Please call me." That night, I got an email. No subject line, no message body, just an attachment, a photo of static. I didn't open it. I deleted it immediately. My ears started ringing the moment I hovered over it. That deep vibration again. I shut off my laptop and shoved it in a drawer. The apartment felt darker now. I started to realize he didn't just live in the TV. Screens were doors, windows. Every electronic surface felt tainted. My phone, my laptop, the microwave display, all of them pulsed like veins. At 3:11 a.m., every screen in the apartment turned on simultaneously. Static, glowing, pulsing static. No sound, just light. And in each screen, reflected faintly, the man. His smile was wider. His mouth open now. Inside, rows and rows of teeth, stretching deep into blackness. Like a tunnel. I smashed the TV with a hammer. It didn't change anything. Shards of plastic and glass littered the floor, but the screen kept flickering for a full minute after I shattered it. Just static, glowing without power. Then finally, mercifully, it died. But I knew it wasn't over. I'd made a mistake. The static man wasn't in the TV anymore. He was through. He was here. The apartment felt too quiet after that. Not peaceful. Empty, like something had taken up all the space and left nothing behind. I moved out the next day, packed everything I could fit into a few bags, and didn't look back. I left behind the TV, the couch, even my bed. All I wanted was to get far away. I didn't care where. I found a place on the other side of town, a sublet in an older building. No internet, no cable, just four walls and peace. The landlord was confused when I asked to have the smoke detectors removed. I didn't tell him it was because their red LED lights reminded me of eyes. For a few nights, things were better. I read by candlelight, listened to music on an old battery-powered radio, and used a flip phone I bought off Craigslist. I didn't even let myself think about the static man. I refused to give him attention. I thought maybe I could starve him out. But he's clever. It started with dreams. I'd see flashes of him behind closed doors or in mirrors, always standing still, watching. Once I saw him in my bathroom mirror, only to wake up and find my reflection distorted, stretched out and grainy, like an old VHS tape. I told myself it was just stress. I repeated that like a mantra. Then came the voices again. The radio crackled one night, long after the music had ended. I thought it was just feedback until I heard my name. Not spoken, whispered, drawn out like it had to be pulled through static to reach me. He'd found another door. That night, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy ones, dragging. I stared through the peephole for nearly an hour. Nothing. When I finally opened the door, I found a package sitting at my feet. No label, no return address. Inside was a portable TV. Old, rusted, covered in dust. I didn't bring it inside. I left it in the hallway and slammed the door. But when I woke up the next morning, it was in my living room, plugged in, glowing with soft, gray fuzz. And behind the fuzz, his eyes. I didn't touch it. I couldn't. The portable TV sat there humming faintly, the static writhing like mist behind glass. I backed away slowly, heart pounding, my breath loud in my ears. The man didn't move, but his image pulsed like a heartbeat. Every few seconds the screen would twitch, like he was shifting, inching closer frame by frame. I wrapped the whole unit in a towel and stuffed it into a duffel bag. I didn't know where to take it, just that it had to be gone. I drove to a bridge 30 miles outside the city and threw it into the river without stopping the car. The splash was dull. It didn't feel satisfying. When I got home, my radio was on. No music, just static. It didn't matter what I destroyed. He wasn't bound to an object. He was broadcasting, reaching, and every time I noticed him, every time I gave him attention, I strengthened the signal. I slept on the floor that night, in the corner of the bedroom, wrapped in a blanket with my back to the wall. I kept every light off, every window covered. I even removed the battery from my phone and stuffed it in a drawer. But it didn't matter. At exactly 3:11 a.m., a soft glow pulsed across the ceiling. Not a screen, not a reflection. It came from nowhere, a shifting light like television static projected from the dark. I looked up against every instinct and saw his silhouette forming in the flickering gray. The man didn't walk. He glitched, One frame closer, then another. His limbs jerked as if reality was buffering around him. Every time I blinked, he was closer until he stood just feet away, leaning slightly. His body buzzed with a low electric hum that burrowed into my ears. Then his hand, long, wrong, too many joints, reached toward me. I screamed, and everything snapped off. The lights came on. The static vanished. I was alone again. For now. That's when I realized he doesn't want to kill me. He wants to replace me. He's learning how to move here, how to copy, glitch into flesh. And if I keep seeing him, if I acknowledge him, I help finish the signal. I tried to warn Nate again, but his number is disconnected. His apartment is empty. And last night, I saw him in a news clip. Not Nate exactly, just someone with his face. But the skin was stretched too tight. And the smile didn't stop. I paused the clip on my laptop, ignoring the way the screen buzzed faintly beneath my fingers. The man in the footage wore Nate's skin like a costume. Same haircut, same eyes, but vacant, too symmetrical. His smile wasn't just wrong, it was practiced. Like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. I watched in silence as he stood in the background of a city council meeting, unmoving, just staring straight into the camera. Through the screen. Through me. I slammed the laptop shut and threw it across the room. The screen shattered. For a moment, I felt relief. Then the lights flickered. I heard it again. The whispering. No screens were on, no devices plugged in, but the sound came anyway from the walls, from the outlets, from the floor. I knew then it was never about the screen. It was about transmission. He's everywhere now. I started seeing other people glitch. A woman on the street turned her head, and for half a second her face rippled into static. A cashier's voice crackled, looping the same 3 words. A man in a cafe stared at his reflection in the window, but his reflection didn't stare back. And every time it happens, the humming gets louder in my ears. I stopped sleeping. My dreams became episodes. Long stretches of static with flashes of the man stepping closer, whispering in a language I shouldn't understand but somehow do. I wake with blood on my pillow from the pressure in my head. My nose won't stop bleeding. My teeth ache. He's changing me. There's a mirror in the bathroom I avoid now. Last time I looked, my reflection was just fuzz. No eyes, no mouth, just blur. And deep in that blur, something else was trying to form, a second version of me, smiling. I've moved again, this time into a cabin with no electricity. No wires, no screens, no signals. I chopped up my phone and buried it. I sleep during the day and keep candles lit at night. But even here, I'm not safe. I can feel the static just beneath the silence, like something pressing against the edge of the world, waiting to bleed through. I think he's almost here. He doesn't need devices anymore. I caught a glimpse of my shadow yesterday. It waved at me. If you're reading this, don't look at your screen too long. Don't replay his face in your mind. That's how he gets stronger, through memory, repetition, attention. He rides the signal, and the signal doesn't come from a device. It comes from you. He's in reflections now. Glass, water, eyes. I don't think I can stop him, but maybe I can warn you. Don't watch static. Don't listen for whispers. If the lights flicker at 3:11 a.m., don't look. Don't acknowledge. Because once you see him, he sees you. And once he sees you, you start to glitch too. I can feel it. My thoughts aren't mine anymore. My hands jitter when I reach for the mirror. He's almost done downloading me. Goodbye. Story 2 title, The Thing in the Drain. Reddit username, I never used to think much about the sound of water. The hiss of a faucet, the gurgle of a drain, background noise. Harmless. But after what happened in my apartment, I can't hear it without breaking into a sweat. It started with a clog. My bathtub drain had been slow for weeks. At first, it was just a sluggish swirl after a shower. I used store-bought cleaner, those cheap plastic snakes you feed down the pipe, even baking soda and vinegar. It helped for a day or two, then back to the same glug glug glug. Sometimes I'd hear faint sloshing hours after the water had drained, like something was still moving down there. One night, I was brushing my teeth when I heard it clearly. Not sloshing, not bubbling. Breathing. I turned off the faucet, leaned in. The tub drain gave a long, Wet exhale. I laughed it off at first, told myself it was pressure in the pipes, but I kept hearing it. Every night, same time. A week later, I noticed the water in the tub was darker. Not murky exactly, but tinged, like old tea. Then came the smell. Not sewage. Worse, like rotting meat left in a bucket of mold. I called maintenance. They sent a guy who barely looked at it before shrugging. Old pipes. Places from the 70s, he said. You'll get smells sometimes. He handed me a bottle of industrial drain cleaner and left. That night, the gurgling got louder. It sounded wet, alive. And when I looked down, the water didn't just circle the drain. It was pulled, like something was yanking it down. I stared for a long time. Then I saw it. Fingers. Just for a second. Thin, grayish, jointed like twigs. They curled around the rim of the drain and vanished. I stumbled back, slipping on the tile. I sat there on the floor, heart hammering, waiting for them to come back. Nothing. In the morning, I convinced myself it was a trick of the light. Maybe hair or gunk caught in the grate. I didn't want to believe I'd seen something real. But later that night, the drain whispered. Not a pipe groan, not air pressure. A voice. It said my name. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, ears straining to catch another whisper. Nothing came, but the next night, it said it again. Eerie. My name, soft and wet, drawn out like something gurgling through spit. I froze in place, toothbrush halfway to my mouth. I crept out of the bathroom, closed the door gently, and stuffed a towel against the crack under the door. As if that would help. I could still hear it. The bubbling, the wheezing. Then a new sound, scraping, like nails or claws dragging along the pipe walls. I didn't go back in until morning. When I did, everything looked normal. But the tub smelled worse than ever. That deep, spoiled, stagnant scent had soaked into the tile. I poured half the bottle of drain cleaner down the hole, and the fizz echoed strangely, like it fell farther than it should have. That day, I asked my downstairs neighbor, Carla, if her place had weird plumbing issues. She gave me a look. You hear it too? She asked. My heart jumped. What do you mean? Carla lowered her voice. Something lives in the plumbing. I don't know what it is, but every tenant in this building eventually moves out. You ever wonder why rent's so cheap here? I had, actually, but I thought it was just because the place was old and not in the best neighborhood. I tried to talk to the landlord about it, she continued. He told me to stop watching horror movies. I wanted to believe she was joking, that we were both just paranoid. But then she said something that made my stomach turn. Have you seen it yet? I hesitated, then nodded. Fingers, I think, or something like them. She stepped back from me like I was contagious. Don't talk about it, she whispered. Don't acknowledge it. That's how it knows you see it. That's how it starts getting curious. That night, I sealed the drain with duct tape, covered it completely, even shoved a towel on top for good measure. I left the bathroom light on and tried to distract myself with TV. But halfway through a rerun, I heard the most horrible noise. A thud, followed by the sound of something heavy shifting in the tub. I didn't move at first. I just sat on the couch, holding my breath, the TV still flickering in the background. Another thud came from the bathroom, then a sloshing like something was moving around in water that shouldn't be there. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a cast iron pan from the kitchen, and crept down the hall. The bathroom door was closed. The light under was flickering now, dimmer than I remembered. The smell was back, thick and rotting, like dead fish baking in the sun. My stomach turned. I pressed my ear to the door. The tape I'd placed over the drain made a soft peeling sound. Slowly, deliberately. Then I heard the whisper again, but it wasn't saying my name this time. Open. Just that. One word, over and over. Open. 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 The voice gurgled like it was underwater, warbling through clogged pipes. Something slithered, a wet, dragging noise followed by the creak of the tub shifting underweight. My hand tightened on the pan handle. I should have left, but something pulled at me. Not curiosity, not fear. It was like gravity, like the drain itself was tugging on my body. I forced my hand away from the doorknob and stumbled backward, almost dropping the pan. I backed into my bedroom and locked the door. In the morning, I found the bathroom door wide open. The tape I'd sealed the drain with was gone. Not peeled off, gone. Noticeable, no scraps. Just a clean, open hole. The tub was dry, spotless even. The smell was gone, replaced with an odd sharpness, like bleach and metal. That afternoon, I went to talk to Carla again. Her door was cracked open. I knocked. No answer. I pushed it open. Carla, her apartment was silent. I found her cat, a ginger tabby, hiding under the bed, wide-eyed and growling low in its throat. The bathroom door in her place was wide open too, and the floor was soaking wet. No Carla, just her phone sitting on the bathroom counter. I called the cops, of course. They asked a lot of questions I didn't have answers to. They searched the unit, questioned me, even talked to the landlord, who acted like this was the first he'd heard of her going missing. But I could tell. He knew. He definitely knew. That night, I heard the voice again. Only now, it was coming from every drain in the apartment. The kitchen sink gurgled first, a short, rattling cough of water. Then the bathtub. Then the bathroom sink. All three drains whispered in unison. My name, over and over. Illy, Illy, Illy. It was like a chorus of drowned voices, overlapping, rising and falling. I shoved dish towels into the kitchen sink, duct taped over the bathroom drain again, and stuffed a rag down the sinkhole. But the sounds didn't stop, they got muffled. More desperate. I could feel the vibrations through the floor. I didn't sleep, just paced in circles around the apartment with the lights on and a flashlight in my hand, watching every drain like it might grow teeth. The next morning, I called a plumber, a different one, not the guy the landlord sent. He was younger, looked like he took the job seriously. He spent 20 minutes inspecting the pipes before going pale. You got something stuck, he muttered, shining his light into the bathtub drain. It looks organic. I swallowed. Like hair? Gunk. He looked at me slowly. No, like muscle tissue. He tried to snake it, but the auger caught on something solid. It screeched against metal, then jerked back like it had been pushed. The cable recoiled so fast, it whipped across the room. The plumber stood up quickly. I need to go get a longer cable. Industrial strength, he stammered, backing out. He never came back. That night, something knocked from inside the walls. 3 slow knocks. Not the water pipes. Not air pressure. Knuckles. Like something trying to figure out the structure. I covered my ears and crouched by the door, whispering, no, 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 like a prayer. Then something scraped down the tub again. Not claws. Fingers. And then it spoke. Open the drain, Eli. It didn't gurgle this time. It was clear. Slow. The voice was human now. Not just that, familiar. It sounded like Carla. I shook my head. You're not real. I whispered. You're not her. The drain responded, perfectly mimicking her voice. Please. I am trapped. You have to help me. You saw it too. You know what it does. I covered the drain with a pot, then pushed a dresser in front of the bathroom door. But still it spoke. I can't breathe down here. I didn't respond. I sat on the kitchen floor with every faucet sealed, every vent blocked, hands over my ears, trying to drown her voice out. Its voice. It kept calling for hours, whispering through the pipes, begging, pleading, sometimes crying. The thing knew her voice too well. At some point I fell asleep. I woke up shivering. The heat was off. The apartment was icy and damp, like a basement. I checked the thermostat, and the screen flickered before going black. Then I noticed the wet footprints, leading from the bathroom door. They were bare, small, human, but the water that formed them wasn't clear. It was the same brown-gray hue I'd seen in the tub days before. The smell was worse now. Not sewage, not rot, something deeper, like something had decomposed into the water itself. I followed the trail, step by step, into the hallway. They stopped at my bedroom door. I didn't want to open it. I turned the knob slowly, heart racing, the flashlight trembling in my hand. The room was dark. No one there, but the window was wide open. I never opened it. I ran to the window and looked down. Nothing. Just the alley below and the faint shimmer of wet concrete. But when I closed it and turned around, I saw something on the wall. A handprint. Long fingers, smeared downward like someone had tried to pull themselves up from inside the wall. I called my brother that afternoon, told him I needed help, that I was losing it. He's always been the rational one, military, no nonsense, doesn't believe in ghosts or demons. When I told him about the drain, he laughed at first. Then he heard the voice. I had him on speaker, standing in the bathroom with the pot removed for just a second. The whispers started up like clockwork. Ili, what the hell is that? He asked. His tone changed instantly. I told you. He promised to drive down that weekend. Said I should stay with a friend in the meantime. But I didn't have anywhere else to go. Everyone I knew had already moved away from this cursed building. That night, I stayed awake, knife in hand, eyes locked on the sealed bathroom door. Just after 3 a.m., I heard Carla's voice again. Only this time, it was outside my bedroom window. She was calling my name. I froze. Her voice was just beneath the windowsill, soft and strained. Eli, please. Let me in. I got out. They let me go. I'm not whole, but I'm here. I want to believe it. Desperately. But I knew Carla wouldn't come back like that. Not whispering from the shadows. Not at 3 a.m. with that tone. Like her voice was stitched together out of static and water. I backed away from the window, heart pounding, blade still in my hand. The whisper turned into sobbing. Wet, burbling sobs, like someone crying through a mouthful of water. Then I heard the scratching. Nails or fingers dragging slowly across the glass. I couldn't take it anymore. I screamed, "You're not Carla." The sobbing stopped. Silence hung in the room like smoke. Then a new voice replied, I know. It wasn't Carla anymore. It wasn't even pretending. The thing's real voice was like a pipe bursting, wet, metallic, ancient. Like it came from below the earth, dredged from some black underground river. And then it said something that nearly made me throw up. You looked into the drain. You saw. That's when I remembered. I had. Weeks ago, before this all started, I dropped a razor. That cheap plastic razor I always used. It fell from the edge of the tub and slipped right down into the drain. Out of reflex, I leaned down and looked inside, just for a second. And in that second, something looked back. A shape and I, maybe round, pale, floating in that murky blackness like a bubble of flesh. I remember jumping back, thinking I imagined it. But now I know I didn't. I saw it, and it saw me. The creature's voice came again, sloshing out of the walls, the sinks, the sealed tub like it was behind them all at once. You've invited me. You acknowledged the mouth. The pipe is open now. I covered my ears and screamed into the silence, but the voice just laughed. Not human laughter, but that awful gurgling sound again like lungs filled with water. Then the faucets began to tremble. Drops of thick brown water dribbled from the edges, even though they were sealed. I tried to mop it, but it just kept leaking. From a faucet, the toilet tank, the ceiling vent. It was seeping in, not water, but presence. That's when I knew it wasn't just in the drain anymore. It was in the building. That night, I heard banging from the apartment below. Furniture dragging. Screams. Something heavy thumping against the floor. I tried to call 911, but my phone screen glitched, warping like it was underwater. All I heard on the other end was static, and then the whispering started through the speaker. I threw the phone against the wall and locked myself in my closet, clutching a flashlight and a baseball bat. Hours passed, maybe longer. I kept the light on, but even it flickered. The shadows in the corners moved like liquid. When I finally emerged, morning light was leaking through the curtains, and the apartment smelled faintly of metal again. I checked outside. Carla's door was open, wide open, but her apartment was stripped clean. Empty, like no one had ever lived there. I packed a bag and left. I've been sleeping in my car for 3 days now, parking far from any buildings, avoiding bathrooms, refusing to use any running water. But no matter where I go, I smell it. That stench of decay and rust. And tonight, when I turned the key in the ignition, my radio turned on by itself. Just static. And it said my name. I smashed the radio, but it didn't stop. The drain in my dashboard air vent hissed. The cup holder was damp. I think it's learning how to spread, not through pipes, but through moisture, through recognition. I try not to listen, tried not to respond, but now I hear it whisper even when there's no sound. Let me in. Over and over. I think Carla's gone. Not dead, absorbed. Like the thing used her, wore her voice, and discarded what was left. So it won't need drains. It'll use our mouths. If you hear your sink gurgle at night, don't look. Don't speak. Don't even think about it. Because once you do, Once you acknowledge the mouth and the drain, it starts to learn your name, and it never forgets. Story 3 title, The Girl in the Frame. Reddit username, o cosa sa mtalas 3 am. I found a photograph at a flea market. It wasn't in a frame at first, just tucked in a bin labeled $1 old portraits. Most were sepia-toned families, grim-faced men in suspenders, or children in stiff lace collars. But this one caught my eye. A girl, maybe 7 years old, sitting in a rocking chair with a blank background. Black dress, long black hair, and a strange expression. Not a smile, not a frown, just a kind of knowing stillness. Like she was listening to something far away. Her eyes were what held me. Not scared, not sad, patient. I bought it without thinking. Later that afternoon, I picked up a cheap black frame from a thrift store and put the photo in it. I hung it in my hallway, right between the bathroom and my bedroom. It looked like it belonged there, like it had always been there. I even started saying hello when I walked past it. Not in a joking way, more like reflex. It wasn't until the second night that I noticed her eyes had shifted. I was brushing my teeth when I caught a glimpse in the hallway mirror. Her face was pointed forward like always, but her eyes, which I remembered as staring just slightly to the right, were now looking directly out of the frame. At me. I froze. I walked out to the hall, turned on the light, and stared at the photo. The eyes looked normal now, slightly off to the right like before. I chalked it up to a trick of the light or my own tire mind. But I didn't sleep well that night. The next day, I passed it again and noticed something else. Her hands had moved. In the original, they were clasped neatly in her lap. But now, her right hand rested on the arm of the chair, fingers curled around the edge like she was getting ready to stand. I pulled the photo off the wall, turned it over. Nothing strange, no writing, no signature, no markings at all. Just a brittle, yellowed paper of old photography. I stared at the image again. Her eyes were definitely looking at me now. I decided I was done with it. I tossed the photo in a drawer and left the frame empty. That night, I heard a knock on the inside of the drawer. It was soft, a dull, single knock, like knuckles on wood from inside the drawer. I froze, the sound still echoing faintly in my ears. I told myself it could have been the building settling, old apartments creak, right? But when I stepped closer, I heard a second knock. Slower, louder. I opened the drawer with a shaky hand. The photo was back in the frame. I didn't put it there. I know I didn't. But there she was, same girl, same rocking chair. But now her body was leaning forward slightly, like she was peeking out from the frame. Her eyes were wide. Her mouth parted just a little, like she was about to speak. I didn't touch it. I shoved the drawer shut and stacked a heavy book on top of it. I went to bed and left every light in the apartment on. I woke up around 2:40 a.m. To the sound of soft creaking. Rhythmic. Familiar. I sat up and held my breath. It was the sound of a rocking chair. I don't own a rocking chair. The sound came from a hallway, just outside my bedroom. I stayed completely still, straining to listen. Back and forth. Soft and steady. The wooden creak moving like someone very small and very light was rocking just inches away. I wanted to believe it was a dream. But the moment I reached for my phone, the rocking stopped. A whisper followed. Why did you hide me? I couldn't tell if it was in the room or in my head, but it was a girl's voice. Quiet. Sad. Evite till morning. When the sun rose, the hallway was empty, the drawers still shut. I checked inside. The photo was gone. I should have felt relieved. Instead, dread filled the space the picture left behind. That evening, while taking out the trash, I saw something in the neighbor's window across the courtyard. A small, dark-haired girl sitting in a rocking chair. I blinked, and she was gone. Back inside, I walked down the hall to my bedroom. On my door, written in tiny letters in what looked like chalk, were the words, "Please don't forget me again." I didn't open the door right away. I just stared at the message. "Please don't forget me again." It hadn't been there the night before. Of that I'm certain. The writing was small, smudged in places, like it had been traced by an unsteady hand. The chalk was dark gray, almost like ash. I rubbed it away with my sleeve and locked the door behind me, checking every corner of my bedroom before sitting down. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, lights on, watching the hallway, listening. The next morning, I decided to get rid of the frame entirely. I walked 3 blocks to a dumpster behind a strip mall and tossed it in, burying it under old pizza boxes and broken furniture. I didn't look at it when I let go. I felt lighter, freer, for a while. That night, I opened my bedroom closet to grab a hoodie, and the frame was propped against the inside wall. My heart dropped. I nearly slammed the door, but I forced myself to look. The photo was back. The girl was back. Only now, her body had shifted more. She was leaning forward, 1 foot visible under the hem of her dress. Her expression had changed, too. It wasn't sad or blank. It was expectant, like she was waiting for me to speak. I grabbed the frame, took it to the tub, and poured half a bottle of bleach over it. The liquid soaked into the paper like water into fabric. I watched her face blur, her dress smear, the image begin to melt into pale white nothing. I left it there overnight, lights on, bathroom door closed. The next morning, the tub was empty, bone dry, and the frame was back on the hallway wall. The photo was clean again. Only this time, she was no longer sitting. The chair was empty. I stared at the empty chair for a long time, waiting for the photo to change again. It didn't. The frame just hung there on the wall like nothing was wrong, but I knew something was missing. Or rather, something was loose now. Out. The girl was no longer in the image, but she wasn't gone. I walked backward slowly, watching the frame the whole time, as if turning away might allow her to move. Something about the silence in the hallway felt heavier, charged, like someone was holding their breath nearby. I grabbed my keys and left the apartment. No phone, no bag. Just left. I walked for blocks. Sat in a cafe for hours, staring at people's faces. Normal people, laughing, talking, existing in a world that still made sense. I debated sleeping in my car, but something told me I had to face it. Hiding wouldn't work. She wanted attention, recognition. When I returned after dark, my apartment door was ajar. Inside, every light was off, though I knew I'd left them on, and the frame was gone. The hallway wall was blank now, spotless, like nothing had ever been hung there. I stood in the center of the room, not moving, listening. Then I heard it, the gentle creak of wood. From my bedroom, I approached slowly. The door was cracked open, and the sound grew clearer, a slow rocking like someone shifting back and forth. I stepped inside. There in the corner of the room was the rocking chair. The chair. I don't own one. And, sitting in it, pale hands resting on the arms, was the girl from the photograph. Same black dress, same hair, but her eyes were wrong. Too deep, too still, like tunnels dug into her skull. She didn't look at me at first. She just rocked. Then she whispered, "Now you remember." I backed into the doorway, my legs trembling. The girl stopped rocking. Her head turned slowly, eyes locking onto mine with unnatural stillness. They didn't shimmer with light. There was no emotion in them at all, just hunger. I waited, she said, voice so quiet it barely moved the air. I was patient. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry, seized with fear. "You were supposed to remember," she continued, rising from the chair in one fluid motion. "But you forgot me. You left me." She took a step forward. I didn't see her legs move. It was more like she glided, her feet whispering over the floor. I turned and ran, slammed the door, locked it, pressed all my weight against it. Silence. Then a knock. Soft, rhythmic. Talp, talp, talp. From inside the closet. I stayed up the rest of the night with every light on, baseball bat in hand, staring at the closet door. It didn't open. Nothing moved. But the knocking came back just before dawn. I called in sick and went to a motel that morning. No lagi, no explanation. I didn't care. I just needed distance. But when I turned on the bedside lamp in the motel room, my breath caught in my throat. There was a frame on the wall. Standard motel art. A bland forest painting. But behind a reflection on the glass, I could see her. Her eyes in the background, faint, watching me through the texture of the paper. I tore it down, flipped it over, but there was nothing there. When I looked in the bathroom mirror, her face was behind mine, just for a second, like a flicker, her mouth forming the word home. I drove back the next day in a fog of dread. My apartment door was shut, nothing out of place. But when I stepped inside, everything felt colder. Still, The rocking chair was gone, but the photo was back on the wall. This time, she was outside the chair, standing in the hallway, hands clasped behind her back, her face tilted toward the camera, smiling. I wanted to burn it, smash it, destroy the photo once and for all, but part of me was scared that would make things worse. That maybe the frame was holding her in, not letting her out. I left it there, covered it with a blanket, taped it to the wall face down. Anything to stop her from watching me. But no matter what I did, I still felt her. Every time I entered the hallway, the air was colder, the shadows were thicker, the silence heavier. Then I started seeing her in other photos. I'd scroll through old vacation pictures on my phone, and there she'd be, standing in the background, just a speck, but always facing the camera, watching. One photo from a friend's birthday showed her behind a group of people, peeking from a doorway with one pale hand gripping the frame. I called my friend in a panic, asking where the picture was taken. He said, "That was at your place. You don't remember?" I didn't, but the photo was a month old, long before I ever bought the frame. That night, I had the dream. I was walking through my apartment, but everything was wrong, stretched, dim, too quiet. When I passed the hallway, I saw myself standing there, staring at the frame. Only it wasn't me. Its eyes were too wide. Its arms hung wrong. And the girl was behind it, smiling, whispering something in its ear. When I woke up, the photo had changed again. Now the hallway was gone. The background was my bedroom, and she was standing beside my bed. I tore it off the wall. Didn't think. Didn't hesitate. I smashed the frame against the floor, glass shattering across the hallway. I ripped the photo into pieces, then burned them in the kitchen sink until nothing was left but curling black ash and the sharp sting of melted plastic in my nose. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like peace. The apartment was still. The air was normal. The shadows weren't stretching along the walls anymore. I slept with the lights off that night. It was quiet, but when I woke up, the photo was back on the wall, pristine, unburned, same cheap frame. Only now, the girl was standing next to me in the photo, her little hand wrapped around my wrist, her smile wider, and I swear to God, I don't remember posing for it. I ran to the hallway mirror and stared at my reflection. Nothing behind me, no one in the frame, but when I blinked, I saw it, just for a split second, her hand resting on my shoulder. Pale, cold, wrong. And then I began to hear her voice, not whispering anymore, but clear. She spoke to me every time I passed a reflective surface. Glass, water, the black screen of my phone. I remember now, she'd say, "You made me forget." The photos started appearing again. In the mail, taped to my windows, inside my fridge. Always a different shot, always closer like someone was documenting my unraveling. And always she was somewhere in the frame. Sometimes beside me, sometimes inside the mirror. Once, I swear, she was behind my eyes. I caught a reflection in a car window and saw her face looking out at me. I think she's not trying to hurt me. Not exactly. She's trying to become me, to overwrite me, to take back whatever I took from her. And the worst part is, I think I deserve it. I don't remember buying the photo anymore. I don't remember where I lived before this. My reflection feels wrong, like it's learning how to mimic me. Sometimes it moves before I do. She's not just in a frame now. She's in me. Every time I blink, she gets closer behind my eyes. Every mirror is a doorway. Every camera, a trap. I sleep less and less. When I do, I wake up with ash under my fingernails and the faint smell of burning photo paper. She whispers in my voice now. I hear myself calling to strangers from inside glass storefronts. If you ever see a picture of a little girl in a black dress sitting in a rocking chair, don't keep it. Don't look at it too long. She only wants one thing, to be remembered, by you. Story 4 title, There's Something Under My Street. Reddit username, Ukosafitsa 347. Our neighborhood is the kind of place where nothing ever happens. Quiet, safe, a little too neat. Rows of identical houses, trimmed hedges, driveways with basketball hoops nobody uses anymore. The most excitement we ever got was when someone's Halloween decorations won a regional contest. That changed the night the manhole cover started ticking. It was subtle at first, a faint metal click every few seconds, like something was tapping from underneath. I only noticed because I walked my dog late and the sound stood out in the silence. At first I figured it was heat expansion or maybe an old pipe vibrating, but it kept going. Every night, same rhythm. Top, 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 paisa, top. My dog wouldn't go near it. He'd pull at the leash, whimper, tail between his legs. One night, he actually laid down and refused to walk past. I mentioned it to my neighbor Dave. He's a retired electrician, loves weird projects. He laughed it off, said maybe it was groundwater dripping onto something metallic. Sewer's full of noises, man. You'd be surprised. But it wasn't a drip. It was too intentional. I started recording it with my phone. The waveform showed clear, repeating patterns, like Morse code. I tried plugging it into a translator, but nothing made sense. The sounds weren't consistent enough to be human language, but they were trying to say something. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I went out at 2 a.m. with a flashlight and crouched over the cover. I knocked on it once lightly. Silence. Then knock knock. 2 slow taps in return. I didn't move. My heart thudded. I knocked again. This time 3 quick taps. A pause. Then 4 taps came back. It was copying me. I backed away slowly, went inside, and locked every door. The next morning, the manhole cover was open. Just slightly. A crack wide enough to see the darkness below. My dog refused to leave the house. And on the sidewalk beside it, spelled in a smear of something brown and sticky, were the words, "Come down." I stared at the words for a long time. They weren't just scrawled. They were written with intent. Neatly, precisely. Each letter perfectly formed, like a child trying to write their best for a teacher. But the substance, it wasn't mud. It had a sour, iron-rich smell, thick and dried around the edges. I called the city, told them a manhole had been tampered with, and that there was something strange going on underneath. They said they'd send someone. No one ever came. That night, the tapping started again. Louder this time. I closed all the windows, turned up the TV, tried to ignore it. But at exactly 2:11 a.m., my doorbell rang. Just once. When I checked, no one was there. But I could hear it. A low, wet breathing coming from the street. The next morning, I saw that the message had changed. The smear had been rewritten. Now it said, "You're already here." I scraped it off with a shovel and poured bleach on the concrete. It sizzled like it was burning something alive. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, clutching a flashlight and a kitchen knife, listening as the tapping grew more erratic, almost excited. The next day, Dave knocked on my door. His face was pale, sweat on his temples. "You been hearing it too?" he asked. I nodded. He looked around like someone might be watching. "Don't answer it. Whatever it is, it's not just under the street. I think it's under us. Beneath everything." He handed me a notebook. I've been keeping track of the sounds. I think it's talking. Not to us. About us. The pages were filled with timestamps, sketches, symbols, gibberish notes. Words like mimicry, mapping, above-layer breach. Then he looked me dead in the eyes. It's learning. And the worst part, he leaned in close. It already knows our names. That night, I found my name written in fresh black sludge on the underside of my mailbox. Not painted, not written, formed with tiny, wet handprints. I didn't sleep after that. I scrubbed the mailbox until my hands bled. No matter how much soap I used, the stink of that sludge stuck to my skin like mold and copper, and something worse beneath it all, something feral. I wanted to leave, pack a bag, grab the dog, and just go. But the air itself felt like it was watching me, waiting for me to run. Dave called that afternoon. "It's changing again," he whispered. "The sounds. They're copying our voices now. Sometimes I hear myself outside, talking back at me." That night, the tapping didn't come. It was quiet, too quiet, until 3:07 a.m. when I heard it. My own voice from the manhole. "Hey, it's me. I need your help. Come down. I'm hurt." I didn't move. My hands were shaking. My dog whimpered and crawled beneath the bed. Then, more voices joined in. My mother. A friend from high school I hadn't spoken to in years. My own voicemail greeting. All coming from beneath the street, layered like some grotesque choir. "Come down. We miss you. Don't be afraid. We just want to see you." I locked every window, every door. I dragged the dresser in front of the front door and sat with a hammer in my lap. And then something started knocking. Not on the manhole, on my floorboards. From beneath. like knuckles wrapped in wet cloth, tapping lightly in a steady rhythm. I looked over at the vent near the baseboard, and I swear, just for a second, I saw a single pale finger retreat into the darkness. In the morning, I went to find Dave. His door was open. Inside, every wall was covered in pages. Newspaper clippings, blueprints, photos of manholes from around the city. Strings connecting dots like he was trying to map something living. He wasn't there. Only his phone buzzing on the floor. When I picked it up, it was mid-recording. A voice whispered on the other end. Dave's not here anymore. I dropped the phone. I don't remember doing it. My fingers just opened like they didn't belong to me anymore. The voice on the other end, it wasn't Dave's. Not really. It had his tone, his rhythm, but it was off. Hollow, like someone had studied him and was trying to mimic the way he breathed between sentences. I called the police. They came, took a report, searched the house. So it looked like Dave just walked out. No signs of struggle. No signs of entry or exit. Just pages and maps, and his phone still recording. I tried to tell them about the sounds, about the voices, about the sludge under my mailbox. They told me I was tired. They were right. I was, but not in the way they meant. I was tired of pretending this was explainable. That night, the voices didn't wait for me to fall asleep. They started as soon as the sun went down. This time, it wasn't just voices from below. They were inside the walls. Hello. Hello. Please help me. A woman's voice, but not one I recognized. She sounded terrified, genuine. I am stuck. I can't see. I don't know where I am. I nearly answered. My mouth opened, but something stopped me like a hand on my throat. I backed away from the wall. The drywall pulsed like it was breathing with shallow lungs. And then something knocked back from inside it. Not hard, just a soft, polite knock. That's when I realized it wasn't trying to scare me. It was trying to get me to open something. Later, I checked the manhole again. It had been resealed, but with bolts I hadn't seen before. Rusted and uneven, like someone or something below had fastened it shut from the inside. The metal was warm, vibrating faintly like a heartbeat. As I stared at it, I noticed something new carved into the edge of the cover. It was a date. Tomorrow's. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with every light on, the dog curled at my feet, the hammer back in my hands. I watched the clock tick toward midnight, toward the date carved into the manhole. At exactly 12:01 a.m., the power went out. Everything went black at once. Not a flicker, not a surge, just gone. I held my breath. The only sound was the dog's trembling whine. Then from below the floorboards, singing. Children's voices, soft and distant, echoing up through the cracks. It wasn't a melody I recognized. No words, just humming. Then, the sound of scraping, metal against metal. The manhole cover. I grabbed my flashlight and crept to the window. It was open. I know I locked it. I'm not stupid, but the curtain swayed gently like someone had just slipped through it. Outside, the street was still, but the manhole was ajar again. More than before. A full 6 inches now, darkness yawning like a mouth. There was something wet leading away from it, a trail, shimmering in the moonlight like snail slime, but black. It disappeared into Dave's yard. I shut the curtain. Moved the dresser in front of the door. 1:33 a.m. The dog started growling at the floor. Low and constant, every muscle in his body stiff. I put my ear to the hardwood. Voices again. Familiar ones. Let us in. Open the door. We miss you. You're the last one. And something else, lower, beneath the words. Chewing. Vet schlurping knaving sounds. The boards beneath me flexed. I ran to the hallway and stopped dead. The walls were dripping. Thick black ooze leaked from the seams where the ceiling met drywall. It smelled like rot and rust and deep, still water. I watched in horror as a finger pushed its way out of vent. Then another. They weren't human fingers. Too long, too thin, jointed wrong. They gripped the edge of the vent, pulling something upward. Not out, but deeper into the walls as though the house had layers we couldn't see. That's when the humming stopped. And the last light in the house, the flashlight, blinked out. Pitch black. I froze where I stood, flashlight useless, the dog pressed against my leg and shaking like a motor. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The silence in the house was total. Not the kind of quiet that feels peaceful, the kind that feels held. Like the air itself is clenching its teeth. Then the house sighed. That's the only way I can describe it. A long, low groan from somewhere beneath the foundation. Wood and stone shifting like something massive had just rolled over in its sleep beneath us. And then, knock, 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 knock. 7 knocks. From every wall at once. The dog bolted, yelping in pure terror, slamming into the back door, trying to claw through it. I fumbled forward, using my hands, tripping over furniture. I made it to the kitchen, found my lighter, flicked it on. A tiny flame. Weak, but enough to see. Footprints. All over the floor. Small, wet, bare feet. Dozens of them. Leading from every vent, every corner, all converging on me. That's when the lights flickered back on. For half a second. In that half second, I saw what was standing in the hallway. It wasn't a person. It had arms, too many of them. Limbs folding out of each other like tangled roots. A face half-formed, made of shifting skin that blinked and smiled and blinked again. Its entire body was dripping, like it had been born from sewer water and dreams. And then the lights went out again. I ran, out the back door, across the lawn, didn't stop until I hit the woods behind the neighborhood. I slept under a bush with the dog pressed into my side, both of us too scared to move. When the sun rose, I went back. The house was quiet, clean, no footprints, no sludge. The manhole sealed again, but something had been left behind. On my pillow, a single gray tooth, long curved, and beside it, written in perfect ink, "We're not under you. You're above us, and that can change." I took the tooth to a vet, pretending it came from a wild animal my dog had dug up. He squinted at it for a long time before saying, "This doesn't belong to anything I've ever seen." He ran it through some testing equipment. His face went pale. "This tooth, it's not made of enamel. It's keratin, hair, compacted like a tusk." I didn't sleep for the next 2 nights. Then, I started seeing the manholes in other neighborhoods. I took a walk to clear my head. 2 blocks over, another cover, vibrating. A mile out of town, one more, a different design, but freshly oozing black fluid around the edges. Whatever this thing was, it had spread, or maybe it was never contained. I went back to Dave's house. Cops had cleared it. No trace of his notes. But one thing they missed, taped to the underside of the sink, a tiny recorder. I played it. Static. Then Dave's voice, ragged and panicked. "It's a network. A system. Not pipes. Veins. We built over it. We thought we covered it. But it's still alive. And it's waking up. Then something else. Vet breathing. Shuffling. A sound like hundreds of nails skittering across metal. And one last whisper. "We're hungry now." I bought supplies. Food. Flashlights. A generator. I stopped using the plumbing. No sinks, no showers, no toilets. The more I avoided the systems they lived in, the quieter the voices became. Until tonight. The tapping is back. Not from beneath the floor. From the ceiling. And my dog won't stop growling at the attic door. I didn't open the attic. I left the house and drove for hours, but it didn't matter. Every town, every street, I saw the same manhole covers. Heard the same hum in the distance. Felt the same pressure under my feet. It's not just my street. They're everywhere. A layer beneath ours. A shadow city with hands and mouths and intent. You might not hear it yet, but you will. When you walk alone at night, and a sewer grate ticks behind you. When your pipes groan in the walls, but no water runs. Don't listen. Don't respond. And whatever you do, don't knock back. Story 5 title. My grandmother's dolls are still moving. Reddit username. Ukosatitsa paperis nula nula. When my grandmother died, she left me her house and a collection of over 200 porcelain dolls. They were displayed on custom-built shelves, filling an entire room from floor to ceiling. Glassy eyes, tiny hands, delicate painted lips. Each doll had its own name, written on a little placard at its feet. Margot, Lacey, Ophelia, Bet, the names went on and on. I used to hate visiting that room as a child. I'd always swear they were looking at me. Not just looking, but watching. Like they remembered me. Like they were waiting. When I moved in, I told myself I'd box them up immediately. But something stopped me. Maybe guilt. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the way the air in that room was colder than the rest of the house, like the space was still alive. So I left them. A week after moving in, I started hearing soft, shuffling sounds in the night. I thought it was mice at first. Then I'd find things slightly out of place in the morning. A window unlatched, a book on the floor, my keys halfway across the room from where I left them. Then, one morning I walked past the doll room and stopped dead. Ophelia's head was turned. She used to face forward like the others, but now it was tilted to the side, as if she were curious. I told myself maybe I bumped the shelf. Maybe it was an earthquake. Maybe I was remembering it wrong. Until the next day, when Margot's eyes were closed. Her eyelids were painted open. I picked her up and checked. No mechanism, no moving parts. Just porcelain. Solid. Painted. But her eyes were sealed tight. The next night, I locked the doll room door. Literally. Key deadbolt chain. In the morning, the door was open, and every doll had turned to face the door. I slammed the door shut, heart pounding, and checked every lock again. Nothing was broken. No scratches, no forced entry. Just open, like they'd been let out, or worse. Like I'd invited them somehow. I grabbed a sheet and covered the entire display. The dolls vanished beneath it, a shapeless mass of hidden eyes. I thought that might help. I even slept better that night, until I woke to find a sheet on the floor and every doll perfectly arranged outside the room, lined up along the hallway, facing my bedroom door. Ophelia sat cross-legged in front of them all, as if she were leading a meeting. Her head still tilted, lips slightly parted. I swear they looked wider now. That's when I called my cousin Danny. She used to visit Grandma with me. She always hated the dolls more than I did. When she answered the phone, I barely had to say anything before she blurted, "They're doing it again, aren't they?" I stopped cold. "What do you mean again?" "I didn't want to tell you," she said. "But I stayed with Grandma a few months before she died. After her stroke, she told me the dolls moved at night. Whispered to her. I thought it was the meds or her mind slipping. But then I started hearing them, too. I asked her why she never warned me. She was quiet for a long time before answering. Because once you see them move, they don't stop. I tried to get rid of them that day. Packed as many as I could into boxes, wrapped them in towels, stuffed them in the basement. But by nightfall, the house felt wrong. Like I'd unplugged something, keeping things in balance. The air was thick. Still, around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of tiny footsteps. Soft. Border. Dozens of them. I opened the bedroom door slowly. They were back. All of them. Out of the boxes. Out of the basement. And this time, they had formed a perfect circle in the living room, around a photo of my grandmother. I didn't go near them. I just stood in the hallway, staring. The dolls sat perfectly still around my grandmother's photo, hands resting on their little porcelain laps. The photo itself had been taken from my nightstand. I hadn't moved it. Ophelia was closest to it, positioned like she was praying. I backed away, locked myself in the bedroom, and waited for morning. At sunrise, I found the dolls back in the display room, every one of them in their original place. The photo of Grandma was back on my nightstand. Nothing broken, nothing out of order. I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was sleepwalking. Maybe I'd done it all and didn't remember. Maybe my grief was messing with me. I didn't leave the house that day. Just watched the doll room from the hallway. Nothing moved. The dolls sat there behind the glass, lifeless as ever. That night, I placed my phone on a tripod and aimed it at the room. Set it to record. I went to sleep around 1 a.m. and woke with a start at 3:12, the exact time I'd heard the footsteps before. Silence now. No shuffling. No voices. Just silence. I grabbed my phone in the morning, heart pounding, and reviewed the footage. At 2:58 a.m., the sheet began to rise. Slowly, like something underneath, it was standing up. Then one by one, dolls began slipping from beneath it, dragging themselves across the floor. They didn't walk. They crawled. Limp arms, twitching legs. Like insects imitating people. They formed another circle in the hallway, around my bedroom door. Ophelia was the last to emerge. She turned toward the camera, and she smiled. The footage ended with her crawling straight toward the phone, her glassy eyes filling the frame. I don't know what scared me more, the smile, or the way I could swear I heard whispering right before it cut out. A soft, breathy voice. I told them to wait. I left the house that morning. Didn't pack, didn't lock up. Just got in my car and drove to Danny's. She didn't act surprised when I told her. She listened, then poured us both coffee with shaking hands. They followed me once, she said, back when I moved out after Grandma's stroke. I thought I'd escaped, but a week later, I found one of them on my porch, just sitting there. Margot. She swallowed hard. I threw her in a river. Did it stop? I asked. No. That's when they got angry. I asked what happened to the doll. She hesitated. I thought I destroyed it, but I still find muddy footprints outside my door sometimes. Little ones. That night, I crashed on her couch. We triple-checked every lock. Left lights on in every room. But at 3:03 a.m., the temperature dropped. I sat up, teeth chattering. The house was silent. Then came the faint creaking with shifting underweight just above us. Danny's attic. We looked at each other. She didn't speak, just grabbed a flashlight and a crowbar from under the sink. The attic stairs groaned as we pulled them down. Cold air spilled out. I went up first. The flashlight beam trembled in my hand. I swept it slowly across boxes, insulation, cobwebs, and then I saw them. 4 dolls. Just 4. Margot, Ophelia, Lacey, Bet, sitting in a row, watching. Ophelia's mouth had changed again. Slightly open now, just wide enough to fit a fingertip. I felt sick. Then Danny whispered, "There were 5 of them earlier." We both turned. A soft thud behind us, like something small had just dropped from the ceiling. We spun around, flashlight flickering. A 5th doll now stood in the corner. One we didn't recognize. Blonde hair, blue dress, no name. She lifted a tiny hand and pointed at me. I stepped back, nearly tripping over a box. The doll's finger remained raised, fixed on me like an accusation. Danny whispered, "That one's new. I've never seen her before." "I haven't either," I said. "But she looks like..." My throat tightened. The doll's face, it was rounder than the others. The cheeks, the shape of the eyes. The more I looked, the more I realized. It looked like me. I lunged forward, knocked it down, and smashed it under my heel. Porcelain cracked, caved in, but when I stepped back, the pieces twitched. The face was still moving. Trying to reform. We fled the attic, sealed the door with furniture. I packed that night, said goodbye to Danny, and swore I'd never go back to the house. But when I got home, they were waiting. All 200 dolls, back on their shelves, unmoved, untouched, except for the 5th one, the girl with the blue dress and my face. She now sat dead center, place where Grandma's photo used to be. And in her lap was a tiny slip of folded paper. I opened it. Inside was a drawing. Childish. Crayon. 5 stick figures holding hands in a circle. For labeled with the old doll names. The 5th was labeled you. I burned the drawing, tossed in the fireplace, and watched it curl and blacken. The doll didn't move again that night. But when I woke up the next morning, I felt strange. Disoriented. The house felt taller. The floorboards wider. My limbs stiff. I looked in the mirror and screamed. My reflection was frozen. Glassy-eyed. Unmoving. My mouth opened to scream again, and the mirror smiled back. From behind my reflection, I saw a tiny hand raise up and wave. I smashed the mirror with a lamp. Glass exploded everywhere, shards slicing my arms, but I didn't care. I clawed at my reflection until it was gone. Until the frozen, smiling version of me was nothing but jagged pieces on the floor. But even then, even bleeding and breathless, I saw it. In one tiny sliver, just before it fell. That doll's face, the one with my features, still waving. I booked a hotel that night. Paid cash. Left my phone behind. No electronics. No trafe. I didn't sleep. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, afraid I'd wake up as porcelain. At some point past midnight, the air changed. The scent of lavender, Grandma's perfume, drifted into the room. I sat up, heart racing, and on the desk near the door, right where I hadn't left anything, a single doll, blue dress, blonde hair, my face. She sat on a hotel notepad, her head slowly tilted to the left. The paper read, "We only want you to remember." I backed into the hallway, heart pounding, and fled the building. Drove for hours. I didn't stop until the sun came up. Parked in a lot, locked the doors, fell asleep out of pure exhaustion. When I woke, the car was ice cold. The windows fogged from the inside. On the dashboard, the doll, wrapped in a scrap of old nightgown I recognized as my grandmother's. I screamed, threw it out the window, and drove to the nearest lake. Weighted it with rocks and tossed it in. It sank slowly, too slowly, like it was watching me. I thought it was done, until I got home. The entire doll room was gone. The shelves, the display, every inch of it stripped bare. Except for one thing. A brand new, full-length mirror on the far wall. And in the reflection, sitting cross-legged behind me, was Ophelia, whispering my name. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I just backed away from a mirror, keeping my eyes locked on the reflection. Ophelia didn't move. Not exactly, but the room around her shifted. Shadows lengthened. The walls behind her softened like cloth, as if the mirror were a window into something deeper. Something else. Then she raised her hand again, but this time not to wave. She pointed at the mirror itself. The surface rippled. Like water. I threw a blanket over it and nailed a board across the frame. Then I dragged it into the basement, locked the door, and taped a warning to the wall. Do not touch. Do not look. I called Danny again. Her voice was shaking before I said anything. They're building something, she whispered. What do you mean? They don't want us to leave. They want us to remember. That's what Grandma kept saying near the end. That we'd forget who we were, and then they'd fill in the blanks. What blanks? The parts of us that aren't protected. Memory. Name. Self. That's what they feed on. I didn't respond, because behind her words, through the phone, I heard it. Porcelain tapping on glass. I asked where she was. She didn't answer. Danny. A faint whisper. Don't let them name you. The call dropped. I drove to her place immediately. The door was ajar. The house freezing. In the center of the living room was a ring of dolls. All new. I didn't recognize any of them. In the center was one I did recognize. Not Danny. Me. A perfect replica of the doll I'd thrown into the lake. In her lap sat a scrap of paper. She wouldn't remember. You still can. Behind me, I heard a whisper in my grandmother's voice. Your place is waiting. I've boarded up the doll room, sealed every mirror. I don't sleep anymore. I can't risk dreaming. Every time I blink too long, I see their little hands reaching, shaping, building me out of porcelain and memory. But it's too late. I've started forgetting things. My birthday, my favorite color, my mother's voice. They're carving me out piece by piece, replacing it with something that smiles too easily. If you ever inherit a room full of dolls, burn them. All of them. Don't wait. Don't ask questions. And if one of them ever looks like you, run. Because once they name you, you belong to them. Story 6 title. The Man Who Lives in the Static. Reddit username. Okosatica channel nula vispers. When I was 10, I saw something in the static of our old living room TV. You know the kind. Big wooden box, dial knobs, no remote. One night, it lost signal during a thunderstorm. The screen filled with fuzz and white noise. But then, something moved in the static. I remember it so clearly. A shape, a man's silhouette, standing motionless, flickering in and out like a bad reception. At first I thought it was a trick of the lightning, but then he waved. I screamed. My mom rushed in, saw nothing, and scolded me for watching too much TV in the dark. I begged her to turn it off. She unplugged it, and he was still there. Even with the TV off, the faint outline of the man lingered in the glass like an afterimage, staring. Eventually, it faded, and for a long time, I convinced myself it never happened. Until last month. My daughter turned 10. We were watching an old movie together when the signal cut out. Static filled the screen. She stared at it, wide-eyed, and said quietly, "Daddy, there's a man in the TV." My heart stopped. I asked her what she saw. She described him exactly. Tall, unmoving, no face, just static where it should be. And then, she whispered. He waved at me. We don't own cable. It was a streaming app. There shouldn't be static. That night, I dreamed of him. Not just in the TV. He was in every screen, phones, tablets, monitors. Watching, waiting, growing clearer each time I blinked. When I woke up, every device in the house was powered on. Playing static. Even the ones that weren't plugged in. I unplugged everything. Every screen. Every speaker. The TV, the tablets, even the smart fridge. I shut down the Wi-Fi and pulled the main breaker to be safe. My daughter didn't understand why. She just kept saying, "He's not on the screen now, Daddy. He's in the buzzing." And she was right. Even with the power off, the static didn't stop. It was in the walls. A low hiss, like a distant TV with the volume all the way down. You could feel it more than hear it, like your bones were tuning in to something they weren't meant to. That night, I watched my daughter sleep. She tossed and turned, mumbling. Then, around 3 a.m., she sat up, eyes wide but unfocused. "He's almost clear now," she whispered. "I think he's learning our faces." I shook her awake. She didn't remember saying it. The next morning, I found something horrifying. In the condensation on the bathroom mirror, there was a handprint, but not mine, not hers. Too long, too thin. I called an electrician, thinking maybe this was some bizarre wiring issue, maybe electromagnetic interference, maybe carbon monoxide poisoning, something real. He came, tested everything, found nothing. But as he packed up, he looked uneasy. "I had a dream last night," he said. "A man told me to come to this address." I stared at him. He shrugged, forced a laugh. "Just a weird coincidence, right?" I didn't answer. That night, my phone turned on by itself. The screen flickered, then filled with static. I tried turning it off, but it ignored every input. Just kept buzzing. I finally yanked the battery out. But even then, the screen glowed faintly. A message faded in, written in static letters. "I see you now." I buried the phone in the backyard. Literally dug a hole and tossed it in, along with the tablet, baby monitor, anything with a screen. Poured lighter fluid over the pile and set it ablaze. The plastic melted, oozing black smoke. The air smelled like burnt metal and something sweet like rotting fruit. I hoped that would be the end of it. It wasn't. That night, I caught my daughter talking to the corner of her room. She sat cross-legged on the floor, whispering into the dark. I stood in the hallway and listened. She said things like, "Why don't you have eyes? Will you show me the other side? Daddy says you're not real." When I stepped into the room, she looked up, not scared, just confused. "He wants you to stop hiding," she said. "He says the signal's strong enough now." "What signal?" I asked. She shrugged. "The one between the words. The buzzing." I kept her home from school the next day and scheduled a therapist. Meanwhile, I started doing research. Static isn't random. People think it's just white noise, but about 1% of it is actually leftover radiation from the Big Bang, the birth of the universe. You're literally hearing the echo of creation. But what if something else is hidden in that signal? A pattern, a presence, a person. I scoured forums, old posts, conspiracy blogs. I found dozens of stories, all eerily similar. People seeing shapes in static, receiving messages, devices turning on by themselves. Most were dismissed as schizophrenia or hoaxes. But one post chilled me. "If he waves at you, don't wave back. That's when he learns your frequency." I never waved, but my daughter did. I slept with the lights on that night. My daughter in bed beside me, her small frame curled up under my arm. I kept the radio on low, tuned to silence. I didn't even trust the dark anymore. At 2:47 a.m., the lights dimmed, not fully out, just low, like something was draining the power. The radio let out a crackle. Then I heard it, a faint voice, warped, mechanical, like a mouth learning how to form words from broken syllables. "Sikon, you take your..." I shut it off, unplugged it. The voice didn't stop. It wasn't coming from the radio. It was coming from the walls. My daughter stirred, sat up, stared into the corner of the room. "He's almost here," she said. "He's pushing through." I grabbed her and ran. We stayed in a hotel on the edge of town. No electronics, not even a digital clock. I slept with a flashlight in one hand and my daughter's hand in the other. At dawn, I went back to the house. Every window was open. Inside, it was silent. Not just quiet, Dad, like a vacuum. No birds, no wind, no hum from appliances. The air felt thick, like walking through water. The walls were covered in handprints, smudges and soot, like something had touched every surface, every inch. The living room TV, the one I thought I'd unplug, was on. Static, but this time no silhouette. Just words, scrolling slowly across the screen in black on white snow. She heard me first. "You close your ears. Now, I am inside. I dropped the remote and backed away. Behind me, the kitchen radio crackled to life. You should have let me finish my name. I didn't go back to the hotel. I drove straight to an electronics recycling center and tossed out every screen I still owned. Monitors, radios, my smartwatch, even my car's digital dash. I ripped the fuse out and drove half blind, using only street signs and instinct to get to Danny's cabin 2 hours north. No power, no signal, just trees and cold air. I thought we'd be safe there. For a few days, we were. My daughter stopped whispering in her sleep. No more radio hisses. No strange dreams. I started to hope it was over, that the static couldn't follow without a scream. Then, one night, she came out of the bedroom holding a mirror. She found it in a cabinet. An old hand mirror with a silver handle and cloudy glass. It's buzzing, she said. I took it from her gently. It was warm. Then, when I tilted it toward the firelight, I saw it. Him, not in full, just a flicker. The shape of a man hunched at the edge of the glass, shoulders jerking with static distortion. No face, just outlines and noise. And he was closer. I threw the mirror into the fireplace. Flame swallowed it, but the glass didn't crack. It hissed. Then, for the first time, I heard his voice clearly from inside the mirror. If you break me, I take her. I froze. My daughter clung to my leg, silent. The fire dimmed, and in the glow, his shape grew clearer. Arms long and wrong, fingers bent like antennae, twitching in slow rhythm. He didn't just use static. He was static, a sentient signal, a presence that spread through technology like a virus, not built by it, but drawn to it like a parasite. Every screen gave him a mouth. Every signal gave him space. And now, he had my daughter's frequency. I poured water on the fire. The mirror hissed and cracked down the center, but the shape inside didn't fade. It only twitched. My daughter began to scream, not out of fear, but in pain, like her head was splitting open. He's loud now, she sobbed. He's under my thoughts. I grabbed her and ran into the woods. No flashlight, no signal, just moonlight and frost. We didn't stop running until we reached the edge of a frozen creek. I wrapped her in my coat and held her while she shivered. In the distance, the cabin's windows flickered. Not fire, screens. Even though I'd unplugged everything, the glow pulsed from inside. A cold blue-white strobe. It pulsed in a rhythm. 3 flashes. Pause. 2 flashes. Pause. 1. Again and again. I counted the pattern, then realized it was Morse code. I used my phone's dead screen as a notepad and scribbled it down. When I translated it, my stomach turned. Tell her to say my name. I shook my daughter gently. What's his name? I whispered. She stared into the woods behind me. Her lips parted, and she almost said it. I clamped a hand over her mouth. No, I said. Don't speak it. Ever. She blinked. But he says if I do, he'll stop. That's how he gets in. We stay by the creek till dawn. I didn't sleep. Neither did she. In the morning, we returned to the cabin. Every mirror shattered. Every screen warped. In the ashes of the fireplace, the silver-handled mirror lay intact, and now fully black, like a portal waiting to open. And scratched into the wooden floor beneath it were 5 words. You can't mute me forever. I buried the mirror deep in the forest, 10 feet down, wrapped in a tarp, surrounded by salt, and sealed inside a lockbox. I said no words, left no markers. My daughter watched silently as I covered the hole. That night, for the first time in weeks, the static was gone. The air felt still, but peace doesn't last when something's waiting. She stopped speaking altogether the next day. Her lips moved sometimes, like she was mouthing words silently, but she never let sound out. I tried coaxing her, bribing her, begging her. Nothing worked, until she brought me a piece of paper torn from a notebook. In her shaky handwriting were the words, "He's inside me now." She'd written more. On the back, "He knows your name too." My breath caught. I flipped the page again. A new sentence had appeared in a different hand. "You look too long." I ran to the cabin and smashed everything left. The old clock, the speakers, even a wind-up radio. Anything that could carry a signal. I dragged the solar battery out into the snow and shattered it with a rock. It didn't matter. That night, the wind howled with white noise. Not whistling, static. The sound of 100 channels playing all at once, too fast to track, too loud to ignore. And under that roar, I heard him. Clear, calm, confident. You gave her silence. Now, give her to me. I checked her room. Empty. The window was open. In the snow outside, her footprints led away from the cabin, and beside them, a second set. Long, dragging impressions like antennae or wires pulled through the snow. At the base of a tree, her scarf hung from a low branch, tied like a noose. The snow beneath it had melted into the shape of a screen, and it was buzzing. I never found her body, just that melted patch of snow, still hissing with invisible static. I've since moved to the mountains. No power, no signal, no screens. I write this on paper. I'll send it by post, hoping someone reads it. Because he's not gone. Sometimes when the wind dies down, I hear the faint crackle again, like a channel trying to tune itself. And I swear the mirror, the one I buried 10 feet under salt and silence, laughs when I sleep. If a screen flickers on its own, if your child says someone's waving through the static, don't wave back. And never, ever let them speak his name. Story 7 of 10. Title, The Reflection Room. Reddit username, u/Samir's Lie. Section 1 of 8. I work as an overnight security guard at the old Lancaster Mental Hospital, or at least what's left of it. The place shut down in the 70s after a patient set fire to the East Wing. Most of it's rubble and rats now, but the state pays for nightly patrols. Insurance or liability or something bureaucratic. My job's simple. Check in every 2 hours, do a walkthrough, report any disturbances. No one ever breaks in. Not unless they're trying to impress someone with a dare. Most just get scared off by the building itself. But there's one room I avoid if I can help it. Room 616. The old therapy chamber. The one with the mirrors. It's not on the official blueprint. The door has no label. You only find it if you're looking for it. Or if, like me, you're dumb enough to follow a whisper. I heard it last week. A soft voice, feminine, just beyond the hallway wall. This way it said, I want to show you something. I thought it was a prank at first, a speaker left behind. Maybe, but it wasn't. The wall had a seam. A door. It opened without a key. Inside, the walls were covered in floor-to-ceiling mirrors. 10 feet tall, unbroken, polished clean despite the decay in the rest of the building. No furniture, no light fixtures, just reflections. And in every mirror, I saw myself. Normal, except one. In the far corner, just slightly out of sync, my reflection didn't move. It smiled. I turned and ran. Character count, 2,000. Shall I continue with section 2 of the reflection room? You said, continue. ChatGPT said, story 7 of 10. Title, The Reflection Room. Reddit username, ukosatica so meteorously. Section 2 of 8. I filed a report that night. Said I found an unlisted room and suspected vandalism. The site manager shrugged it off. Those old hospitals are full of dead ends. Don't dig too deep. That's how people get stuck. I didn't mention the mirrors. Didn't mention the reflection that smiled back at me without moving. I tried to forget about it. Went back to my usual patrol route. Kept clear of the hallway that led to room 616. But the building didn't make that easy. Each night, the whisper got louder. This way, sometimes I'd catch it behind me, like it had moved to a different hallway, a different wall. Then the camera started acting up. Room 312's feed began showing flickers of light at 3:15 a.m. sharp. Just flashes, silver and pale. I assumed it was lightning at first, until I realized it was regular. Timed. I rewound the footage, frame by frame. And in one of them, just one, there I was, standing in room 312, even though I'd never stepped inside it. That version of me looked off. His face was stretched slightly, his limbs too long, his uniform just a little darker. He stood in the corner, unmoving, head tilted to the left. And in the reflection of the window behind him, no camera should have caught it. Room 616. The mirror room. I checked the physical space myself. Nothing. No sign of entry. No way anyone could have filmed me there. And yet, The timestamp matched my patrol logs exactly. That night, I returned to room 616. I told myself it was to confirm what I'd seen, to clear my head. But in truth, I think it was pulling me. I didn't even remember walking there. 1 second, I was outside the staff lounge. The next, I was turning that rusted knob again. The mirrors waited. And in the far corner, my reflection stood, unmoving, smiling, hands twitching just slightly. When I raised mine, it didn't follow. It simply watched. Then mouthed something. One word. Stay. Character count, 2,000. Would you like to continue with section 3? You said. Continue. ChatGPT said. Story 7 of 10. Title, The Reflection Room. Reddit username. Ukosatica somidiously. Section 3 of 8. I stumbled back and slammed the door shut. My breathing echoed through the hall. The mirrors inside hadn't shown any other figure. Just me and that version of me that didn't move right. That didn't blink. I didn't sleep when I got home. I scoured forums, urban legends, even Reddit threads about Lancaster. Found almost nothing. Just one obscure comment in an archive post. Don't look too long into 616. It learns your movements. Then it stops mimicking. That same night, something even stranger happened. I looked into my bathroom mirror, just brushing my teeth like normal. I turned my head, and for a split second, my reflection didn't. It held still for half a second too long. I dropped my toothbrush. The rest of the week was worse. I'd walk past windows and feel watched. Not by people, but by my own reflection. Every surface that could show me, I avoided. I covered the bathroom mirror with a towel. Stopped shaving. Only checked my phone with the screen brightness turned way down. I even covered my car's rearview mirror with duct tape. But it didn't stop. Room 616 waited for me. I could feel it every time I entered the building. The whisper came earlier now, no longer luring, commanding. Come back. Let's finish. On Friday, the night guard who relieved me didn't show. I waited 15 minutes, then 30. Called his phone, no answer. When I checked the logbook, I realized something horrible. His last check-in was listed for room 616, and it wasn't in his handwriting. I rushed back through the halls, heart pounding, flashlight flickering. The door to room 616 was wide open. The mirrors were full. Every one of them had a reflection. Not just mine. Dozens of me, standing still, smiling, frozen in slightly wrong postures. Except for one. One moved. One walked forward. And I realized too late I was still standing in the hall. That wasn't my reflection anymore. It was loose. Character count, 2,000. Shall I continue with section 4? You said. Continue. ChatGPT said. Story 7 of 10. Title, The Reflection Room. Reddit username. Ukosatica somidiously. Section 4 of 8. I slammed the door and ran. Didn't stop to think. Didn't stop to breathe. Just tore through the halls until I reached the front lobby. My key card slipped from my fingers twice before I finally unlocked the outer doors. The cold air hit me like a slap. I drove home without looking in the mirrors once. I even turned off the rear view cam, just followed the road and prayed whatever was behind me stayed there. But it didn't. When I got home, my bedroom mirror was uncovered. I hadn't touched it in days. I know I covered it. There I was staring back. Except I wasn't. The figure in the glass wore my uniform, but the patch was wrong. It read attendant instead of security. And the face, it was longer. Teeth slightly too many. It smiled. And behind that version of me, inside the reflection, I saw a room 616. Like it had followed me. Like the room was inside the mirror now. I covered every reflective surface in the house. Windows, TV screens, chrome. My phone stayed off and stuffed inside a drawer wrapped in foil. I slept on the couch with the lights on. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of breathing. Not mine. It came from behind the TV. Slow, deep, wet breaths. I inched closer and peeled back the blanket covering the screen. It was off. Just black. But in the center, I saw it, a face staring back, pressed up against the glass like it wanted out. And it looked exactly like me. No, worse, like how I'd look if I were stuck inside for too long. It mouthed 2 words. You're next. I smashed the TV with a lamp. The reflection didn't crack. It just smiled wider. Character count, 2,000. Would you like to continue with section 5? You said, continue. ChatGPT said, story 7 of 10. Title, The Reflection Room. Reddit username, Ukosaftica, so meteorously. Section 5 of 8. I left the house that night with only a duffel bag and a hammer. Found a motel an hour away. One with no smart TVs, no wall mirrors, just a single dusty bathroom cabinet I immediately covered with duct tape. Still, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw mirrors. Not just mine either, versions of me, dozens of them, all trapped behind glass. Some screaming, some slamming their fists, others smiling like they'd already made peace with whatever had replaced them. And in every dream, room 616 was always right there, just a pane of glass away. By the next morning, the fear had settled in my bones like frost. I decided to go back to Lancaster one last time. I needed to see if it had spread. When I arrived, the place was empty. No cars, no lights, not even the day staff. It was like the building had exhaled everyone out. Room 616's door was open again. No hinges, no handle, just an opening, like the wall had peeled itself open. Inside, the mirrors had changed. Each one held not just reflections, but rooms. Other places, living rooms, bathrooms, bedrooms. Familiar places, my places. I saw my kitchen, my car, the motel I just slept in. Each mirror had its own version of me, pacing, sleeping, sitting, staring. I watched myself shave in one, argue with someone in another. In the last one, I was dead, eyes open, mouth frozen in a silent scream. And that version began to move. I stepped back. The mirror cracked. Not shattered, cracked. And then a hand pressed through. Not made of flesh, but polished silver glass. It reached for me, and I realized too late. The mirror wasn't showing me possibilities. It was showing me replacements. And they were getting closer. Character count, 2,000. Shall I continue with section 6? You said, continue. ChatGPT said, story 7 of 10. Title, The Reflection Room. Reddit username, Ukosaftica, so meteorously. Section 6 of 8. I turned and ran, but the hallway behind me was wrong. It bent in unnatural angles, like the building had stretched while I was inside. My footsteps echoed back too quickly, like someone was chasing me just out of view. I didn't look. I didn't dare. When I finally burst into the lobby, I stopped cold. The windows, every single one, had become mirrors. No glass, no view of the outside. Just me, surrounded by hundreds of myself. Some moved, some didn't. One began pounding the other side of the glass like it wanted in. Its fists left smears behind. Not of blood, but of silver. Mercury. The pounding grew louder. I turned to run, but the lobby doors were gone, replaced with polished metal, seamless and smooth. A final mirror, tall and wide, blocking the way out. And from inside it, my reflection smiled, tilted its head. Then it spoke. I've been practicing your voice. I backed away. You've got such a nice life, it whispered. Nice friends. Nice job. A heartbeat. It grinned wider. I'd like to try it for a while. The mirror began to warp. Like liquid. Like a veil. The thing that looked like me pressed its palms to the surface, and the silver began to ripple. I didn't wait. I smashed the nearest fire extinguisher cabinet, grabbed the metal cylinder, and hurled it into the reflection with all my strength. Glass exploded. I ran through the empty frame, expecting the outside, but it wasn't. It was another mirror, and on the other side, a copy of the hallway I had just escaped, only dirtier, dimmer, and lined with other versions of me. One a hospital gown, one hanging from a noose, one crawling with nails driven into its hands. And each of them whispered, in perfect unison, "Let us out. Character count, 2,000. Would you like to continue with section 7? You said, continue. ChatGPT said, story 7 of 10. Title, The Reflection Room. Reddit username, Ukosaftica, so meteorously. Section 7 of 8. I ran blindly, tearing down the mirrored hallway, unsure if I was going deeper into the hospital or deeper into something else. The walls pulsed with movement. Shadows behind the glass, all wearing my face, but wrong in just enough ways to shatter my sanity. I passed doors that shouldn't exist. One labeled home, another work, another just birth. Each time I looked too long, my reflection inside them twitched. I reached a corridor where every wall was mirror. Floor, ceiling, no way forward. And then one of the reflections stepped out. It wasn't cracked or burned or twisted. It was perfect, too perfect, clean-shaven, smiling, confident. It tilted its head and said, "I'm the one you pretend to be. But I'm better. I won't waste your life hiding from glass." It lunged. I tackled it before it could get its footing, screaming like an animal. We crashed through the wall. Not a wall, a thin sheet of shimmering film, and landed back in room 616. I was alone. Or, I thought I was. The mirrors were shattered now. Dozens of shards, each reflecting different versions of me. Some weeping, some still, some grinning. None of them matched my movements. None of them were me. Then, from the largest broken pane, the voice came again. "I'm still in here." It was my voice. Every time you look, I get a little closer, a little clearer. I picked up a shard and stared into it. My reflection blinked and didn't stop. Eyelids fluttered, stretched wide, then receded as if melting backward. "I'm the real you," it hissed. I dropped the glass and ran. Out of the room, out of the building, out into the snow without my coat, without my keys. I ran until my lungs tore open with cold. But even now, even far from that place, every mirror shows something slightly wrong. Sometimes I smile without meaning to. Sometimes I wake up facing one, and I can feel him watching, waiting. Character count, 2,000. Shall I continue with the final 1,000 character section? Section 8? You said, continue. ChatGPT said, story 7 of 10. Title, The Reflection Room. Reddit username, Ukosarica Somidiorsly. Section 8 of 8. I haven't looked in a mirror in weeks. I cover windows, dark screens, puddles, anything reflective. But sometimes when I pass by polished metal or glass, I see him. Just a flicker, a smile too wide, a version of me that never came back from that room. I don't think I ever escaped. I think I'm just another reflection, walking, talking, mimicking, and the real me? He's still in room 616, still pounding on the glass, hoping someone sees him. So if you ever find a door with no label, if the walls are lined with mirrors, and if your reflection smiles first, run. Story 8 title. There's something wrong with the house across the street. Reddit username, Ukosarica Bekportichev. I live on a quiet cul-de-sac in a suburb that doesn't make the news. My neighbors are polite, if distant. Retired couples, young families. Everyone keeps their lawn trimmed and their business to themselves. Then, 3 weeks ago, someone moved into the house across the street, number 43. It had been empty for years. The kind of for-sale home that slowly rots behind a nice fence. But suddenly, it was lit up again. The porch light was on, the hedges were trimmed, and the front window curtains were drawn shut. No moving trucks, no welcome signs, just light appearing overnight. The weird part? No one ever comes in or out. I work from home, and my desk faces the window. I would have seen someone, a car, groceries, anything. But number 43 just sits there, still, watching, except at night. At night, the lights flicker. Every night at exactly 2:12 a.m. A pale yellow glow fills the window, pulsing like a heartbeat. And sometimes in the rhythm, I see a silhouette. Not walking, swaying, back and forth, like it's hung from the ceiling. I try to tell myself it was nothing, a curtain, a trick of the light. I even knocked on the door one morning, pretending to be a curious neighbor. No answer, but I heard something, a low groaning sound, like wood bending under pressure. Then came the smell, rot and old water. I left a note in the mailbox. Just a welcome message, really. If you need anything, I live across the street. That was it. The next morning, the note was back on my porch. Only now, it had been rewritten. Same paper, same ink, but not my handwriting. It said, "I already have what I need." I stared at the words for a long time. They weren't threatening exactly, just wrong, off. Like whoever wrote them had learned human language from books, but never practiced it with another living soul. The next night, I watched again. This time, I stayed up with a pair of binoculars and a camera. 2:12 a.m. came. The lights flickered on, steady this time. The figure appeared again. But now I saw details. It wasn't a person swaying. It was something hung, something desiccated, strung up by wires or strings, suspended from the ceiling like a puppet. Its head lolled unnaturally, and its limbs jerked in slow, deliberate patterns. I snapped a picture. Flash went off. The figure stopped moving. Then, slowly, it turned toward the window. There were no eyes, just smooth, pale skin. But somehow, I knew it was looking at me. I dropped the camera. The binoculars clattered to the floor. I fell out of my chair and crawled away from the window like a child. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, the photo was gone from my camera. In its place was a corrupted file with one word: closer. I tried deleting it. It stayed. I tried formatting the card. It stayed. I threw the whole camera in the trash and walked away. Later that evening, just after sundown, I stepped outside to take out the trash and froze. The door to number 43 was open. Just a crack, wide enough to see inside. And something was standing there. Tall, thin, like a shadow, stretched too far. It held something in its hand, a rope or maybe a leash. And dangling from the other end was a doll. A perfect replica of me. Same shirt, same jeans, a tiny stitched face with a little black thread sewn where my mouth would be. It twitched once, twice, and then the figure gently closed the door. I haven't stepped outside since. The day after I saw the doll, me hanging there by thread, I nailed my curtains shut. Every window. I turned all the lights off and stopped answering my phone. It rings sometimes. Unknown number. Never leaves a message. That thing in number 43 hasn't opened the door again, but the porch light stays on. Always on. Pale yellow, like a dying star. And I've noticed something else. It's learning. My routines. My reactions. Even my thoughts, maybe. Last night at 2:12 a.m., I didn't look. I forced myself to stay in bed, eyes closed, noise-canceling headphones on. I listened to ocean, sounds at full volume, refused to peek. This morning, a conch shell was sitting on my porch, just like the one from the audio file. Only real, cold, damp, and inside, tucked in the spiral, was another doll. Still me. But this time, its mouth was stitched shut and its eyes were missing. I threw up in the sink. I called the police. They showed up 20 minutes later, cruisers' lights flashing, the whole 9 yards. I explained everything as calmly as I could and pointed toward number 43. And you know what they said? There's no house at number 43. I blinked. What? The officer frowned. That lot's been empty since 1998. Burned down in a gas explosion. 2 dead. Wasn't even rebuilt. I walked them to my front window. The porch light was still on. Right there, I said, pointing, but they just stared at the lot across the street. Overgrown grass. Crumbling foundation. A for sale sign half buried in weeds. Sir, the officer said slowly, there's nothing there. They gave me a wellness check and left me with a pamphlet for counseling services. I thought I was losing my mind until I checked Google Maps. Street View shows a house at number 43. Not just any house, that house. With the yellow porch light and the drawn curtains and the black door with peeling white trim. It's right there in full color, time-stamped 6 months ago. I tried zooming in on the front window. There's a face in the reflection. My face, mouth wide open, screaming. Only, I don't remember ever being outside to be photographed. I don't remember ever screaming like that. And then, while I was staring at the screen, my speakers popped. Loud, sharp static, followed by a whisper. Closer, the same word from the corrupted photo. I unplugged everything. Router, computer, modem, phone, even a microwave. Sat in silence for hours, just listening to my own heartbeat and the occasional creak of floorboards shifting. But the static didn't stop. It came from the walls. A low hum. Familiar, like a detuned radio, just outside reception. I followed it, slowly, through the hallway, past the kitchen, down to the basement. And there, on the far concrete wall, was something that hadn't been there before. A door. Same peeling trim. Same black paint. And carved across the wood in a language I didn't recognize, but somehow understood, was a message. You brought it home. I haven't opened it. Not yet. But every night at 2:12 a.m., I feel something press its weight against the other side. Waiting, breathing, swaying. I don't know how long I've been awake. Sleep doesn't come easy when you hear something whispering through the drywall. Not talking, not even words, just a sound like thread being pulled tight. Soft, persistent, taut with tension. I nailed the basement door shut. It didn't help. At 2:12 a.m., the whispering grows louder. I don't hear it with my ears anymore. I feel it, like it vibrates in my teeth, like it's humming a tune that only exists in the hollow space behind my eyes. I tried leaving, packed a bag, grabbed my keys, ran out to my car, but the house didn't let me go. The street bent in on itself. I drove in a straight line, I swear I did, but after 10 minutes, I found myself passing my own mailbox. Again and again. Every time, something changed. First pass, mailbox normal. Second, flag up. Third, a single black envelope resting inside. I stopped and checked. There was no address. Just a wax seal with a symbol I didn't recognize, an eye, sewn shut with thread. Inside, one sentence. You are home now. I ran back inside and locked every door. Turned off every light. Hid under the kitchen table like a child during a thunderstorm. I cried for the first time in years. Not out of fear. Out of certainty. That feeling in your gut when you realize you've already crossed the line. There's no going back. You're in it now. The next morning, I opened the basement door. Not by choice. I woke up standing in front of it. Nails gone. The door ajar. The air smelled like rust and wet stone. I should have turned back. I didn't. The stairs led deeper than they should have. Far past the physical limits of my home. Each step down made my head feel heavier, like the pressure of the atmosphere was shifting around me. And at the bottom, I found the house. Number 43. Inside my basement. Perfectly intact. Porch light glowing. Curtains drawn. Except now I was behind the curtains. Looking out. Through the living room window, I could see my real house. The one I thought I'd left. And standing in my living room, staring across the street, was me. Binoculars in hand. Camera on the windowsill. Just like that first night. But I wasn't holding those things anymore. He was. I watched as he dropped the camera, crawled away from the window, and I realized something horrifying. I was watching the past. The loop was closed, and now I was trapped inside the moment before it began. I turned around. The living room was larger than it should be. Walls breathing gently, wallpaper pulsing in time with a heartbeat that wasn't mine. And sitting on the couch was the doll. My doll. Only now it had grown. Full-sized. Its stitched mouth was unthreaded. Its arms twitched gently, fingers like twine and nail heads. One by one, its eyes opened, small, round mirrors reflecting me from angles that shouldn't exist. It spoke. In my voice. You saw me. Now you are me. I ran back up the stairs. Or at least I thought I did. Every step should have brought me closer to daylight, to the scent of coffee or the creak of my kitchen floorboards. Instead, the staircase just kept going up, then sideways, then down again. The direction shifted with each blink, like an Escher drawing on a carousel. At some point, I stopped running and walked backward. Only then did the air grow lighter, the pressure lift from my skull. When I opened the door at the top of the stairs, I was in my own home. But it wasn't right. The furniture was in all the correct places, but mirrored, like someone had rebuilt it from memory, but got the layout flipped. Left became right. Every photograph on the wall showed me smiling just slightly too wide, like I'd been told to look happy at the wrong moment. And the windows? They didn't show my cul-de-sac anymore. Just fog. Dense, white fog that curled against the glass as if alive. I pressed my fingers to it. The chill bit back, but left no condensation. No trace I'd ever touched it. The power didn't work. No Wi-Fi. The clocks all blinked 2:12. No matter what I did, they stayed there. I smashed the microwave clock with a hammer. It bled. That's when the doorbell rang. I froze. It rang again. The same tone as always. Familiar, harmless. But something about hearing it in that mirrored house made my stomach flip. I opened the door. Across the porch stood a boy. Maybe 10. Pale skin. Neat haircut. Black hoodie with no logo. Hands folded politely in front of him. He smiled up at me. Do you have a moment to talk about our house? I blinked. What? Our house, he repeated. Across the street. I don't think you should be here, I said, stepping back. Are your parents? He tilted his head. They're inside. They want to meet you. I slammed the door. Dead-bolted. Moved a bookshelf in front for good measure. The doorbell kept ringing. Not urgently. Just a reminder. It rang 13 times. Then stopped. When I finally peeked through the peephole, the boy was gone. But there was a new envelope on the mat. Black wax seal. Same eye with thread symbol. This time, the message read, "Don't be afraid to knock." I didn't open it. I didn't even touch it. I retreated into the mirrored version of my bedroom, lay under the covers, and stared at the ceiling for what felt like days. The ceiling fan spun counterclockwise. Slower, slower, until it stopped entirely and began swaying side to side like a pendulum. Back and forth, like the thing in the window had done that first night. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, I wasn't in bed. I was standing on the porch of number 43. Not the real one, or maybe it was. It was darker now, unlit, dead silent, but I could feel it breathing. The door swung open on its own. No sound, just the creaking pressure of expectation. Inside was a hallway that shouldn't fit the house's footprint. Endless, lined with frames. Photos of me. Only they weren't moments from my life. They were possibilities. Alternate versions. Me as a child, standing in traffic. Me in a hospital bed, tubes in my arms. Me hanging from the ceiling by twine. All those outcomes. All those deaths. All waiting. Because the house wasn't haunted. The house was hungry. And I had already been fed to it. I should have run, but the hallway wouldn't let me. The floor beneath my feet shifted. Subtle at first, like walking on carpet that flexed too much. Then with each step, it softened. Became wet. I looked down. I wasn't walking on floorboards anymore. I was walking on a stretched surface of stitched skin. Pale, translucent, threaded together with twine in jagged patterns. Veins like hairline cracks pulsed faintly beneath it, and each photograph on the walls, they began to change. No longer just alternate versions of me. Now they moved. Short loops, like gifs burned into the frames. Me drowning in a bathtub while something watched from the doorway. Me clawing in my own reflection, eyes bleeding black thread. Me opening a door that led into the same hallway I stood in now, but older, darker, lined with hundreds of frames. I turned to leave, but behind me, no door, just more hallway. The house had sealed itself. I shouted. I screamed. I punched the wall and felt it give beneath my fist like flesh. The wall bruised, moaned, and then whispered something back. You are becoming. That's when the lights began to pulse. Dim to bright, bright to dim. The rhythm was familiar. 2:12 a.m. Heartbeat light. And from the end of the hallway, I saw something begin to descend. At first, it looked like a marionette, dangling from cords. Limp arms, legs too long, head bent sideways. But as it drew closer, I realized it wasn't hanging. It was being worn. Someone, or something, inside a human-shaped husk, moving it like a puppet suit. The skin twitched with every step. The limbs jerked unnaturally. It dragged a length of thread behind it. Black, glistening alive. I turned and ran, not knowing where I was going, just away. The hallway folded. Warped. Suddenly, I was in a bedroom, my own but wrong. Windowless. Damp. The sheets on the bed were stitched from clothing I recognized. Shirts I'd lost over the years, torn pajamas, socks that went missing in the dryer. And sitting on the bed was me, or something wearing my face. Except the mouth was missing. Just a blank patch of skin where lips should be. It stared up at me, gently tilting its head. I backed away slowly. My hand brushed against something. A needle, lying on the dresser, attached to a length of black thread. The thing on the bed opened its arms like a child, asking to be picked up. Behind it, written in red across the wall in looping cursive. Stitch what you stole. I ran again. Every doorway I passed led to the same room, over and over. A loop of nightmares. Kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, all reversed, all rotten, until I came to a final door. This one was carved from bone. The handle was warm, and beneath it, carved into the ivory surface. Once you know the house, The house knows you. I don't remember turning the handle, but the door opened all the same. And behind it was a room I've never seen, but always known. It felt like stepping inside a memory someone else had dreamt for me. The walls were impossibly high, vanishing into blackness above. Hundreds, maybe thousands, of dolls lined the shelves. Some sewn from cloth, others carved from bone or porcelain. All of them human-shaped, and every single one bore my face. Not metaphorically, they were me. Different expressions, different injuries. Some smiling with too many teeth, some with mouths stitched shut, a few eyeless, others with hands tied behind their backs by rusted wire. They twitched in unison, like they'd been waiting for me to arrive. In the center of the room stood a mirror, not hanging, floating, suspended in the air by cords of braided thread, each one attached to the ceiling in invisible ways. I walked toward it like I had no choice. The reflection wasn't mine anymore. It was the version of me I'd seen watching from across the street, binoculars in hand, shirt torn, a shadow clinging to his back like a second skin, his smile wide, empty, practiced, and slowly that version lifted his hand and waved. Then the surface of the mirror shuddered like water flexing inward. It began to open. I turned to run, but the dolls had moved. They were standing now, shoulder to shoulder, blocking the path. No sound, no breathing, just the endless quiet press of hundreds of me, watching. I backed toward the mirror, and from behind it, a voice whispered, "Trade." A hand emerged from the glass. Long fingers, pale skin, sewn lines at the joints like a doll hand. It gestured for me to come closer. "Trade what?" I asked, my voice barely audible. The answer came not in words, but feeling. A pressure in my skull. Trade freedom for forgetting. Trade safety for silence. The meaning sunk in slowly. If I gave up everything, my memories, myself, maybe I'd be allowed to leave. I considered it. I wanted to forget. But then I saw one of the dolls begin to unravel. Its thread peeled back, and something else twitched beneath the surface. Something alive. Something not me. Just wearing my skin like a trophy. It wasn't about forgetting. It was about becoming hollow. Becoming just another doll in the house. I screamed and dove away from the mirror, slamming through the wall of dolls. They scattered like dry leaves, their limbs clacking against the floor. Behind them was a door. Normal. Wood. Handle. I didn't think. I just ran through it and found myself on my front porch. At home. Sunlight. Birdsong. No folk. I collapsed onto the welcome mat and wept. Hours passed. I called my parents. Heard their voices. Real. Alive. I looked outside. Number 43 was just an empty lot again. And for the first time in days, I slept. But when I woke up, my mouth hurt. I stumbled to the bathroom, looked in the mirror, and saw the stitches. They were faint, nearly invisible unless you looked closely. Tiny pinpricks at the corners of my lips, as if someone had sewn them shut, and then removed the thread. A memory etched into flesh. I stood frozen, mouth slightly parted, testing the movement. I could talk. I could eat. I could scream. But part of me knew those motions weren't mine anymore. I examined my face. Nothing else had changed. No stitched eyes. No puppet joints. But when I blinked, there was a delay. Like my reflection had to catch up. I yanked the mirror off the wall and smashed it. Shards scattered everywhere. Each one showed me a different version of myself. And only one matched perfectly, and it was smiling. I swept them all into a garbage bag, duct taped it shut, and buried it in the backyard. Then I started sealing things. Doors, windows, ducts, anything the house, or whatever it was, could use to seep back in. But deep down I knew it was too late, because I hadn't escaped. I'd been released. I was walking, breathing proof that the house let you go when it wants to. When it's finished with you. Or worse, when you're no longer a threat. Just another doll on a string, unspooled and waiting. A week passed. I tried normalcy. I even hosted my sister for dinner. She asked why I seemed off. I just smiled, told her work had been hard. Later that night, after she left, I found a new envelope on my windowsill. No wax seal this time, just a single scrap of paper. On it, in my handwriting, "You did good." That's when I remembered something I hadn't told anyone. I used to sleepwalk as a kid. Stopped when I was 10. Or I thought I had. The next night, I set up cameras around the house. Basic motion detection software. Nothing fancy. I went to bed around midnight. At 2:12 a.m., the motion alert triggered. The footage showed me getting up, eyes closed, walking to the backyard, digging, retrieving the bag of broken mirror shards. I brought them inside. One by one, I licked them clean, then placed them in a perfect circle on the living room floor. When I watched the footage, I tasted blood in my mouth. And worse, something sweet, like the juice from canned peaches, or preserved flesh. The footage ended with me standing in the circle of shards, eyes open, smiling, staring directly into the lens, and mouthing one word. Trade. No audio. Just lips moving. I checked my body for cuts. Nothing. Checked the trash. The shards were gone. The circle on the floor, still faintly etched in the hardwood, burned in, and sitting at the center where I had been standing was a doll. Small, handmade, fabric skin. Its mouth had been sewn shut, then unstitched. And in its chest, a pulsing black thread wound tight, moving slightly with each breath. It was breathing. I keep it in a jar now, sealed tight, taped shut, hidden beneath the floorboards. But at 2:12 a.m., I hear it rustling, thread scraping glass. Sometimes I swear I hear it whispering my name, not out loud, but inside me, like it's using my own lungs to speak without sound. The house across the street is gone, but the porch light flickers in the fog. People wave to me differently now, like they're not sure if I'm still me. I smile wide, practice in the mirror, and sometimes, just for a second, the reflection doesn't smile back. Story 9 title: The Door in Apartment 6C. Reddit username: u/latchkey shrike. I live in a 6-story walk-up in a part of the city people only talk about when something awful happens. Nothing supernatural, just the usual: broken elevators, loud neighbors, sirens that sing you to sleep. But something's changed on the 6th floor. Apartment 6C has been empty for months. The last tenant moved out in April, and the landlord taped a sign across the door: under repair, do not enter. Basic stuff. Yellow tape. A deadbolt. No one went in or out. But 2 weeks ago, I heard someone walking around inside. Slow. Heavy steps like boots on wet carpet. It started at night, usually after 1 a.m. I live in 6B right next door, so I hear everything through the wall. Pacing, furniture being dragged, something clicking like long nails tapping wood. At first, I thought squatters. Or maybe someone broke the lock. I knocked once just to check. The noises stopped immediately. Not faded. Stopped like someone froze. I pressed my ear to the wall. Nothing. Then the doorknob on my side, the one connecting our units through an old maintenance closet, rattled. That door's been sealed since I moved in. Painted shut, bolted tight, just part of the wall now. But it rattled hard enough to make a picture fall. I called the landlord the next day. He swore no one had a key. It's sealed, kid. Don't worry about it. Probably rats. I've never met a rat that walks like it weighs 200 pounds. 3 nights later, I woke up gasping. Not from a dream, just this horrible sensation like something was watching me from behind the wall. I turned on all the lights and stared at the sealed door. Something tapped back. 3 times. Soft. Rhythmic. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I found something on my welcome mat. Not a note. Not trash. A small key, old and rusty, on a length of black thread. I picked it up with a towel and threw it in the trash chute. Thought that would be the end of it. But that night, it was back, tied around my doorknob, dangling gently, swaying like a pendulum. It wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. I didn't take it. I started staying out late, crashing on couches, anything to avoid being alone in my apartment at night. But no matter where I went, the key would follow. In my coat pocket, under my pillow, once inside a sandwich bag in the office fridge. Always the same, rusty, black thread, cold to the touch. I finally broke down and called building security. They came up with a crowbar, popped the seal on 6C, and went inside. 15 minutes passed. No sound. Then the guard came back out, pale and shaking. Didn't say a word. Just nodded at me and left. Later that night, I checked the hallway. The door to 6C was closed again. No tape. No sign. But nailed to the door with a rusted screw was a new plaque. Welcome home. I asked the super about the guard. He blinked like he didn't know who I meant. There's no security on night shift, he said. I haven't seen that guard since. And 6C still makes noise. Pacing, scraping, humming, low and hoarse, like someone singing through water. And sometimes the knob on the sealed closet in my bedroom jiggles. Like whatever's on the other side doesn't need an invitation anymore. The knob rattled again last night. 3 turns, a pause, then 2 sharp yanks like someone testing the strength of the hinges. I stared at it from across the room, phone in hand, recording. I wanted proof. But when I played the video back, just silence. No sound. No movement. Not even my own breathing. It was as if the footage had been taken in a vacuum. I showed it to a friend, but she just frowned and said, "It's black. Did you forget to turn the camera around?" No, I didn't. I watched it again. Still black. But now, at the very end, just before the video cut, there was a faint reflection. A pair of eyes in the dark. Wide. Milky. Not mine. That night, I put a dresser in front of the closet. I shoved my bed across the room. I even sprinkled salt in a line across the base of the wall. I don't even believe in that stuff, but something deep in my bones was screaming barrier. Anything that might hold it off. At 1:41 a.m., the wall moaned. It started slow, like old wood settling, then grew louder like something grinding against the studs. The closet door bulged slightly outward. Not enough to break, just enough to breathe. And then the humming started again. This time, it was clearer. I could make out words. A lullaby, croaked out in the voice of someone who hadn't spoken in years. Hush now, little locks and latches. Let the sleepers come and see. Through the cracks and under catches. Open, child, let me be. I cover my ears. It didn't help. The sound vibrated inside my head, like it bypassed hearing entirely. I stumbled out into the hallway, knocking on my neighbor's door, just wanting someone else to hear it. No one answered. The hallway lights flickered once, then died. For a second, I stood in pitch black. And in that second, I heard a key turn inside the closet. I ran downstairs, out onto the street in my socks and pajamas, and sat on the curb until sunrise. I didn't go back up until the sky was fully blue. Inside, everything looked the same, except the dresser was gone. Not pushed aside, gone. No marks on the floor, no scratches on the paint. Just a clean wall where it used to be. And the closet? Still sealed. But now there was writing scratched into the wood, spiraling out from the knob like a spider web. I remember you. You pecked to bake. Tried to leave for good. I got as far as the corner bodega before I realized I'd left my keys. Came back upstairs. They were hanging from the knob of the closet. Not my front door. Not my backpack. The closet. And dangling beside them, tied with that familiar black thread, was the rusted key again. Only now it was glowing faintly. I didn't touch it. I turned and left the apartment again, but the elevator was dead, just humming softly behind the doors, like something breathing down a hallway. I took the stairs, 6 flights, but every landing led to the same floor. Over and over. Apartment 6C. Same door, same plaque, same faint humming, growing louder each time I passed it. By the 7th loop, the light behind the peephole was red. By the 8th, I could hear breathing through the keyhole. By the 9th, the door was open a crack. And on the 10th, my own apartment key was lying on the floor in front of it. Nosleep, no roost, just waiting. I didn't pick it up. I kicked the key down the hall, turned around, and ran the other way. When I finally found stairs that ended, I crashed through the front doors of the building and vomited into the nearest trash can. Everything was spinning. My lungs felt like they'd been breathing air that didn't want to stay inside me. I crashed at a friend's place for 2 nights. She told me I kept muttering in my sleep, whispering a song she couldn't quite catch. Once she swore I got up and stood at the corner of her bedroom, just staring at the closet. She didn't tell me until the morning after. I don't remember any of it. I went back to my apartment to pack the rest of my things. I told myself I'd leave for good. The place was colder than it should have been. The windows were closed, but frost curled on the inside of the glass like fingers trying to get out. The salt line I had poured across the floor was scattered, as if someone had swept it away 1 grain at a time. The closet door? Still shut. But now, from under the frame, a line of black thread had snaked outward. Not long. Just a single strand, taut and pulsing like it was breathing. I didn't dare touch it. I opened my closet instead, pulled out a duffel, and stuffed it with clothes. Kept my eyes on the door the whole time. That's when I noticed the whispering again. Not humming this time. A voice. Familiar. My own. It was me, whispering behind the closet door. I crept closer, pressed my ear against the wood. You'll come back. You always do. You can't help it. You're not real out there. You only exist in here. I stumbled backward. The voice kept speaking, listing things only I could know. The name of the girl who broke my heart in college. The thing I almost did to myself at 19. The secret I buried in the drawer beneath my bed, wrapped in an old t-shirt. It spoke with intimacy, with ownership. I opened my phone to record it, but the screen was black. Not off, just wrong. Reflected nothing. I tried taking a selfie. There was no face in the frame. Just a closet door behind me, cracked open slightly. I turned. Still shut. I blinked. Now it was open an inch. A sigh rolled out, warm and wet, like the breath of a cave animal. I zipped the duffel, grabbed my keys, and ran. Didn't look back. Didn't close the door behind me. I rented a room across town. Didn't tell anyone where I was going. Didn't tell anyone what I'd seen. But the thread followed. First in the laundromat. A single black strand wrapped around the washer handle. Then in my sock drawer, woven through the fabric like a seam. And worst of all, in my mouth. I woke up gagging on something coarse and bitter. Pulled it out hand over hand, inch after inch. A thread attached to something deep in my throat. At the end was a tiny, hand-stitched figure. A doll, with no face. And stitched across its chest, where the heart should be, was one word. Stay. I burned the doll, doused it in lighter fluid, tossed it in the alley behind the building, and lit it with shaking hands. It screamed, not loudly, not with lungs, but a sound hissed up from the flame like steam escaping flesh. The fabric writhed. The thread turned to smoke. And when the flames finally died, all that remained was a single stitch of black, curling in on itself like a spider dying in the cold. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I was in the hallway again. 6C staring me down. That open crack in the door like a mouth holding its breath, just waiting for me to blink. I took sleeping pills on the second night. Triple the dose. I didn't wake up in my room. I woke up standing outside apartment 6C, barefoot and shivering. The door was wide open. Inside the light. Not electric. Not candle. Just presence. I backed away slowly, heart pounding, skin tight with cold sweat. I turned to leave and saw that the hallway had no end. No stairs. No elevator. Just a hallway stretched like taffy, vanishing into the dark. And the plaques on the doors? Every one read 6C. Different fonts. Different sizes. But all the same. I turned back toward the open door. Something was moving inside. Not walking, floating. A figure just beyond the threshold. Drifting like it was underwater. Slender limbs. A sagging head. Threads dangling from its fingertips, trailing along the floor like veins. It spoke in a voice I felt in my spine. You're stitched to me. I ran. Didn't matter that the hallway looped. Didn't matter that the walls pulsed like lungs. I ran until my legs gave out, and then I woke up in my rented room. Choking vet. Mud on my feet. Frost on my windows. And a rusted key on the nightstand. I don't remember bringing it back. I tried flushing it. It returned. I tried throwing it in the river. That night it was in my shoe. I finally tried using it. Not in 6C. In my own closet. The door opened with a sound like old bone. Inside was darkness. That thick, moving dark, not empty but waiting. The air reeked of mildew and memory. Something stood at the back. Not clearly visible. Just two eyes, open and wide, shining faintly like polished stone. And then, without moving, it was suddenly closer. At the threshold. Face inches from mine. A mirror of me, but wrong. Thread trailing from its mouth like drool. Joints too loose. A doll wearing my skin. It tilted its head. Almost home, it whispered. I slammed the door. Hammered nails through the frame. Moved a bookcase in front. Paced the apartment for hours, ears ringing with that voice. At exactly 6:06 p.m., I heard a knock. Not from a closet. From a front door. I looked through the peephole. Nothing there. But when I opened it, a gust of icy wind hit me like a slap. Lying on the mat was an envelope. Inside, a folded photograph. It showed me, asleep in bed, closet open behind me, and, standing in the doorway, a stitched version of myself, thread wound through its eyes, mouth gaping, hands reaching. I should have left the city. I should have left the continent. Instead, I stared at that photo until dawn, trying to tell myself it was fake, that someone had staged it, photoshopped it, anything to make it less real. But deep down I knew it wasn't a threat. It was a reminder that whatever's behind that door knows me better than I know myself, knows what I fear, what I hide, while due to avoid being alone with it. I went back to the apartment that afternoon to gather the rest of my things. My front door was already open, not kicked in, just waiting. Inside, everything was spotless. Every piece of furniture polished, clothes folded, bed made with corners tucked like a hotel. And on the pillow was another envelope. Inside, a note. "You are the door." My throat went dry. I turned to leave, and for a split second, I saw movement in the bathroom mirror. Me, but not me, blinking half a second too late. Jaw twitching. I ignored it, forced my feet toward the hallway. 6CS door was closed again. Fresh paint. No plaque. No hum. But there was something new carved into the wood near the bottom. A keyhole. No handle. Just that. And above it, painted in thin strokes. "Insert yourself." I backed away slowly, heart racing. My keys were gone again. I turned to head down the stairs and stopped because now the stairwell didn't end in the lobby. It ended in a mirror. A full-length mirror mounted to the wall, framed in black thread. My reflection stood inside, but it didn't mimic me. It moved slower. It breathed shallower. And around its neck was the rusted key. It raised its hand, pressed its palm to the glass. A whisper filled the stairwell like steam. "Let me back in." I ran, sprinted all the way up to the roof, breath burning in my chest. There, I found something worse. Every rooftop of every building in every direction was connected by a line of black thread. Dozens, hundreds, a web of entry points. And at the center, hovering just above 6C, was a figure, tangled in thread, arms limp, head twitching in slow circles. Every few seconds, it opened its mouth. No sound came out, but from the rooftops across the way, doors began to open, one by one. People stepping through, eyes blank, hands covered in ink like they'd been writing stories in their sleep. And I realized, this isn't about me. It never was. The door doesn't want me dead. It wants me empty. A passageway, a tunnel of flesh and memory it can crawl through. To reach others, I left the roof in a daze. Walked for miles. Lost hours. At some point, I woke up sitting in a church pew, holding the rusted key in both hands. The priest asked if I needed help. I told him, "I think something's trying to move through me." He just looked sad. Told me some doors aren't built with hinges. They're born. And once they open, they never really shut. I don't know if I'm possessed. I don't know if I'm becoming the next 6C. But last night, when I looked in the mirror, there was thread on my teeth. And my reflection whispered, "We've almost stitched enough." I haven't slept in 3 days. The thread is spreading. It started in my mouth. Just a taste like biting your cheek and finding string. But now it's under my fingernails. In my ears. I feel it behind my eyes, pulling gently every time I blink. I tried going to the ER. They ran tests, drew blood, told me I was fine. But when I checked my chart after the nurse left the room, I saw a line scribbled in red pen. "Patient is not alone." I left without checking out. I went back to the building, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't have a choice. Something was calling me back, not in a loud, dramatic way, just constant, like tinnitus. A hum under everything I did. When I reached the 6th floor, the lights were off. Only the door to 6C glowed faintly. That same warm, flickering light I'd seen in the dream. I approached slowly. The keyhole pulsed. I reached into my pocket. The key was already in my hand. I don't remember grabbing it. I don't remember wanting to. But I slid it into the lock and turned. The door creaked inward, opening into blackness. No chodła, just an open space, deep and wide, stretching impossibly far. like the inside of a cathedral made of meat. Thread hung from the ceiling in webs, pulsing with wet life. Every few steps, I saw things stitched into the walls. Fingers, teeth, photographs, all mine. I walked until the light behind me faded completely. Then, from the dark, a voice. You were never real. Only fabric. Only echo. The floor opened. I fell, not downward but inward, folded like cloth. Thread ran through my limbs, pulling me in spirals, winding me tighter and tighter until my thoughts stretched thin. When I finally stopped, I stood on a platform made of mirrors. Each one reflected a different version of me, smiling, screaming, dead-eyed, stitched shut. They began to flicker, changing faster, looping like film strips melting. And through the glass, I saw them. Other people, sitting in rooms, reading, writing, eyes vacant, threads crawling from their ears and mouths like antennae. All connected. Each one a door. And me? I was next. Something slithered from the darkness behind me. Not fast, not loud, just inevitable. A presence made of teeth and memory, humming that same lullaby in reverse. Let the locks all bend and break. Stitch the sleeper, make him wake. Mirror flesh and thread divine. Door to door, we intertwine. It pressed against my back. I didn't turn, couldn't. Its arms reached around me, pulling my jaw gently open. Thread slithered down my throat like warm wire. I should have choked. I welcomed it. Then light, blinding, sterile. I was in my bed, home. Morning sun cutting across the room. For a second, I thought I was free. Then I saw the mirror. Not my reflection, just a door. The mirror hasn't shown my reflection since. Just the door. Just door. Sometimes open, sometimes shut. Never mind. Sometimes I see things through the crack. Glimpses of that impossible black cathedral. Flashes of moving thread. A pale hand twitching. A stitched eye blinking slow. The worst is when I see myself in there. Not my reflection. Me, standing on the other side, watching with my head tilted just wrong, like it's too heavy to hold straight. My smile never moves, but my eyes beg. I've tried everything to block it. Painted the mirror. Replaced it. Shattered it. Each time, the new one appears in the same place. Hung exactly where the old one was. Sometimes it shows up within hours. Once I blinked, and there it was already mounted. I've been documenting everything, writing down the changes, the gaps in time, the sounds. That's how I noticed the pattern. 2:12 a.m., 4:06 p.m., 6:06 p.m., times when the thread tightens, when my hands move without asking, when the door in the mirror shifts a little more open. I think those are the stitching hours, and I think I'm not the only one caught in them. Last night, I followed the thread. Literally, one strand had grown from the base of the mirror, curling out like a root, up the wall, across the ceiling, and into the light fixture. I pulled the cover off and found the entire fixture filled with knotted thread, still warm and pulsing. I tugged it free, followed it into the crawl space. Well, I found her didn't belong in the real world. Dozens of dolls, all shaped like me. Some old, some new, some incomplete. A few stitched inside out, with features rearranged. Each one had a thread leading into the wall. I followed the thickest one. It led to a sealed panel. I pried it open, found a mirror on the other side, framed in bone. It showed a version of me standing inside apartment 6C, looking calm, serene, arms stretched wide. Then the image twitched. He looked up, smiled, and walked out of frame. Seconds later, I felt something behind me in the crawl space. I turned too slowly. It was like looking at my own corpse in motion. Skin too pale, jaw too wide, threads dragging from its sleeves like nerves. It whispered, "You are open." Then it lunged. I don't remember escaping. I just woke up outside the building, blood on my fingers, mud under my nails, and a key clenched in my teeth like I'd been biting it. Back home, I found the mirror once more. But this time it was cracked and leaking light. And beyond it, apartment 6C no longer looked empty. It looked lived in. Framed photos, candles, curtains, and in the center of the room, a chair, rocking gently, occupied by me. And me raised a hand slowly. Thread curled between the fingers. It pointed at me, They made a gesture like pulling something through a slit. And my stomach twisted, literally folded in on itself, like something inside me had shifted position. I ran to the bathroom to throw up. And what came out wasn't food. It was thread, feet of it, coated in saliva and flecks of cloth. I'm unraveling. Tonight's the last night. The mirror door is fully open now. The version of me on the other side beckons, smiling wider than humanly possible, thread twined through its gums like braces. I don't feel fear anymore. Just gravity like I've always been meant to step through. And maybe that's what I've been, a body wrapped in story, a puppet made of memory, waiting for the thread to pull tight. So I'll go. Not because I want to, because I was stitched to. If you ever hear humming through a wall that shouldn't breathe, if your mirror starts blinking when you don't run, don't fight, just close the door, and pray it doesn't remember your shape. Story 10 title, The Whistling in Room 712. Reddit username, o kosatica no smoking sign. I work the night shift at the Riverside Hotel. It's not fancy, just a 3-story place with peeling wallpaper, leaking condensers, and a refuse smell that drifts up from dumpsters behind the building. Room 712 is on the far end of the 3rd floor. It's always locked, always sealed, and always empty, but lately it's been changed. Last month, the management marked it out of service pending repairs. The door was wrapped in plastic sheeting, screws in the knob, tape across the frame. No one ever walks down that hallway. Guests will literally cross to the elevator rather than pass room 712. It gives them the heebie-jeebies. Even maintenance avoids it. Then the whistling started. It began in room 711, the room next to it. A slow, low melody at 3:03 a.m. Soft but unmistakable, like someone humming underwater. The guest complained. It's steady, loose, wakes me at the same time each morning. Once we arrived, the moment we opened 711's door, the whistling stopped. Nothing inside. No radio. No stray wires. Just an empty room. 2 nights later, it happened again. Same time. This time from room 710. Guests checked out the next morning, saying the tune followed them, locked in their nightmares. They quit returning. I brushed it off, maybe a faulty vent or pipes. But when I passed room 712 sealed door at exactly 3:03, I heard it too. Soft, faint, distant. I froze. My flashlight hand shook. For a moment, I thought my breath escaped in time with the whistle. It seemed to echo under the plastic sheet, pressing against the door. When I shined the light at the screws, one had loosened. The tape sags. The sheath rustles like something's behind it. That night, I reported it. The super shrugged. Sound travels weird in old buildings. I'll send maintenance downstairs. He never did. The next morning, I found something taped to the fog glass across the hallway. A single key. Antique brass, carved like a treble clef. Next to it, scrawled in wet ink. Open me at 3:03. I didn't take it, just stared. Later that afternoon, I tested the lock. Cold metal slipped, no resistance. The screws had been loosened from the inside. I froze so hard, I swear, I heard another faint whistle through the plastic. There's no maintenance on the 3rd floor after dark. I don't know where the key came from. I don't know who whistled that melody. But tomorrow night at 3:03, I'm going to have to decide. Do I just leave room 712 alone and maybe let the whistling spread across the floor? Or do I open the door and answer? I didn't sleep that day. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that melody, the way it lilts upward, soft and slow, like someone gently dragging a wet finger across glass. Even in the silence, it lingered, like it had embedded itself in my eardrum. By 2:45 a.m., I was back at the front desk. The hotel lobby was dead quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty. It feels watched. I had the key in my pocket. I don't know why I took it. Maybe part of me was hoping it would disappear. But it didn't. It sat heavy and warm like it had waited for years to be held again. At 2:59, I started walking. The 3rd floor was colder than usual. The lights flickered when I stepped off the elevator. Room 712's plastic sheeting shimmered slightly, like it was being breathed on from the inside. The tape had curled. The screws hung loose like teeth in soft gum. I stood in front of the door, heart thudding like a hammer. I pulled out the key. My fingers trembled. I stared at the brass, traced the treble clef shape with my thumb. It felt familiar, like a tune I'd once hummed as a kid, but had forgotten until now. The second the clock hit 3:03, I heard it again. The whistling, not behind the door, inside my head. A melody rising and falling, wrapping around my thoughts. I don't remember turning the key, but suddenly the plastic was peeled away, the screws dropped at my feet, and the knob was turning smoothly in my hand. The door creaked open. Darkness. A room swallowed in shadow. No furniture. No carpet. Just black floorboards and the outline of old wallpaper peeling in perfect spirals. And in the far corner of the room, barely illuminated by the hallway light, was a figure, sitting cross-legged, motionless. I couldn't see a face, just the curve of a back, the outline of limbs too long, too still. Then it whistled. Clear, crisp, the same tune. It never turned, just kept whistling, like a metronome carved into flesh. I should have run, screamed, closed the door, and burned the hotel down. But I stepped inside, and the second my foot crossed the threshold, I couldn't hear the whistling anymore. Not through my ears. It was in my lungs. My throat tightened, my lips pursed, and then, without consent, I began whistling back. The same tune, perfect pitch, perfect tempo, like I'd rehearsed it my whole life. The figure stood, slowly, its arms dangled by its sides, limp. It turned with an awful, delicate grace, like it was on strings. And then I saw its face. No features, just holes. Mouth, eyes, nose, all perfectly round, like they'd been whittled out. Empty and smooth and deep. Still, the melody flowed from its mouth, a whistle without breath. I tried to stop, to back away. My legs didn't respond. I was locked in place, like the melody had coiled itself around my bones. Then it raised a hand and pointed, not at me, at the wall, behind me. I turned. There, nailed to the bare wooden wall, was a mirror, covered in soot, cracked in 5 places. But even through the grime, I saw what it showed. Me, standing in 712. But my reflection was smiling, even though I wasn't. And worse, behind me, the figure wasn't there. It was inside the mirror, watching me, whistling through my smile. I staggered back from the mirror, my own smiling reflection still locked in place, whistling as if mocking me. The tune hadn't stopped. It was just dislocated, playing through my image instead of my lips. The sound echoed around the room, bouncing off the wooden floor like it had weight. The figure hadn't moved, but I swear the holes in its face were wider now, rounder, like they'd been pulled open to let more of the melody out. I bolted, back through the doorway, out into the hallway, slamming the door behind me so hard it cracked the frame. Silence. I panted, gripping the wall for support. Room 712 looked the same again. Closed, undisturbed, but the mirror image clung to my mind like grease on skin. Back at the front desk, I reviewed the security camera feed. At exactly 3:03 a.m., the feed cut out for 33 seconds. When it returned, I was already walking back down the hall, pale, dazed, the key still in my hand. But here's the thing. The timestamp said 3:19. I'd lost 16 minutes. And in the freeze frame of the final second before the feed came back, the camera caught one clear image just behind me in the hallway reflection of a picture frame. A pale hand, resting gently on my shoulder. I started researching the hotels past the next day. Riverside was built in the 1940s. Original blueprints list only 711 rooms. No 712. In fact, the third floor was shorter back then, designed to hold fewer suites due to space limitations. 712 was a retrofit, tacked on in 1971 after a structural revision no one could explain. The city didn't even have permits on record. But that same year, 4 people disappeared from the hotel in a single week. All guests staying on the 3rd floor. All their bookings accidentally extended by the hotel's own system. All last seen near room 712. After that, a string of weird incidents. Guests reporting singing holes in the walls. Night staff quitting abruptly, citing the man without a face. Maintenance swore the room grew every time they tried to renovate it. Walls shifting overnight, dimensions changing, tape measures not matching reality. Room 712 was finally sealed in 1985 until someone reopened it last month. And that someone might have been me, because I checked the logbook, cross-referenced the digital entries, and one reservation stood out. Under my employee profile, logged 2 weeks before I even touched the key. Guest number 712, scheduled check-in, 3:03 a.m., TBD departure. I didn't book it, but the name listed? Mine. Full name. Exact spelling. Even the birth date. I ran back to the 3rd floor, armed with a flashlight and a hammer. My plan was stupid. Break the mirror. Burn the wood. Do something to stop whatever was leaking through. But when I got there, room 712's door was open. Not just cracked, wide open. Inside, the room was completely transformed. Lush carpet, ornate wallpaper, a gramophone in the corner playing that same damn tune. The mirror was gone, but a new one hung above a dresser, oval and polished, gleaming like it was freshly shined. And standing before it was me, dressed in the same uniform, same name tag, but still smiling. I stayed in the doorway, not crossing the threshold. Mirror Me turned and looked directly at me. Then he pointed to the bed. Something lay beneath the sheets. A shape, still, human. I stepped back, out into the hallway. The door didn't shut behind me. It just disappeared. I turned, and room 712 was gone. The wall was seamless. No sign a door had ever been there. But from behind the drywall, I could still hear it. Whistling. Faint. Muffled. But closer than before. I told my manager the next morning. Told him everything. He stared blankly at me through the entire retelling. When I finished, he leaned forward and whispered, "There is no room 712. I thought he was joking, so I pulled up the hotel schematics. The old ones I found yesterday clearly showed a retrofit on the 3rd floor. I showed him the blueprints, pointed at the 712 mark with a handwritten, pending label beside it. He looked me in the eye and said, "These are fakes." Then he slid a worn manila folder across the desk. Inside, every blueprint, every remodel plan, every maintenance log. Not one mentioned a room 712. Not even a gap in numbering. The rooms jumped from 711 to 713. No fanfare, no space. It's like 712 was edited out of the hotel's memory. Except I remember it, and I still had the brass key in my pocket. I showed it to him. He didn't react, just blinked, and said, "You need to go home, son. You're sleep deprived." But when I tried to leave the office, something strange happened. The hallway outside didn't lead back to the lobby. It turned sharply and stretched. Too long, too quiet. Faint humming echoed through the vents. Low, familiar. I turned around, but the office was gone. The door I just stepped through had vanished. Only that damn whistling remained, echoing down the hallway in spirals. I walked until I reached a dead end. But the wallpaper was different here. Thicker, older, peeling at the corners. I tugged it. Beneath it, a black, hand-drawn doorframe, crudely sketched, painted over hundreds of times, but still visible if you look close enough. And right in the center, drawn in blood-colored ink, was a small brass keyhole. No doorknob, no handle, just a hole. I held up the key. The air grew colder. My breath came out like smoke. The moment the key touched the painted keyhole, the wall creaked. The outline of the door began to bulge, stretching outward like something was pushing from the other side. And from inside, yes, inside the wall, I heard it again. My voice, singing the same whistle tune. Only now it was crying too. I dropped the key, ran. Eventually the hall twisted back to normal. The manager's office was there again. Lights flickering. Empty. I quit that night. Packed my bags. Left the key on the desk. Walked out without looking back. But here's the part one didn't expect. It followed me. First in dreams. Always 3:03 a.m. Always in a hallway that loops back into itself. Then in real life. Tunes caught in static. Whistling from cracked windows. Guests in the grocery store who don't blink. And this morning, something worse. I woke up with plaster dust on my chest. From where? I live in a new apartment. Top floor. No construction. No mold. But right above my bed, a new crack had formed in the ceiling. Thin. Dark. threaded with what looked like soot and brass. I climbed on a chair, tapped it, hollow, like a chamber. I leaned my ear against it, and I swear, just faintly, I heard my own whistle echo back. I haven't answered the front door all day. Every time I check the peephole, no one's there. But sometimes I see a shape, just outside frame, and I know sooner or later it's going to whistle again, and my lips will move, without me. I boarded up the crack in the ceiling, used plaster, caulk, steel mesh, anything I could find, painted over it, lissage, even stapled a page from the hotel logbook over the seal like it might ward something off. But that night, I woke up with a nosebleed and the sharp taste of metal in my mouth. The page had been shredded from the inside, not torn, sliced like with fingernails. My neighbor knocked on my door around noon, pale and jittery. "You've been whistling at night?" I froze. She rubbed her arms, glancing down the hall. Real low. Same tune. Kept me up. "Thought maybe your TV was on." I told her I didn't own a TV. She nodded slowly and said, "Then whatever's been standing outside your door the past 2 nights isn't from your place." I moved out the next day. Got a new apartment 2 cities over. No forwarding address. Paid cash up front. First 2 nights were quiet. On the third, the building manager slipped a note under my door. "Welcome to room 712. I never told him which unit I'd picked. My mailbox doesn't say 712. My lease doesn't either. But every time I enter, the brass numbers on the hallway door now say it. Bold, polished, freshly mounted. 712. I try to rip them off. The screws spun endlessly, never loosening. I smashed the numbers with a hammer, came back the next day, and they were clean again. Shinier. Then the whistling returned. 3:03 a.m. Faint behind the closet door. I shoved a chair under the handle, poured salt across the carpet, taped every vent shut. Didn't help. The next night, the closet door stood open an inch. Inside, total blackness. I tossed a flashlight in. It blinked off instantly, but the sound got louder. Now it wasn't a single whistle. It was 2, layered, harmonizing, and I recognized the second one. It matched the pitch of the figure I saw in room 712 at the hotel, the one with the hollow face. Then came a knock, not at the door, from the mirror. 3 soft taps, 1 long, 2 short, like a rhythm. I covered the mirror with a towel. In the morning, it was uncovered again, and written in condensation, though there was no steam or moisture in the room, were 5 words. "You're still inside the room. I haven't left since. Not because I can't, but because I'm terrified of what I'll see if I try." I've started catching glimpses of that smiling reflection again. At first, it was in shiny surfaces, the kettle, my phone screen, the toaster. But now, even shadows. I'll glance at the floor, and it will mimic my posture a second too late. Or worse, it'll move before I do. Last night, I found a brass key under my pillow again. Same treble clef. Same warm feel. I opened the closet door with it. Inside was the hotel hallway. Stretched. Dark. Whistling through the walls like breath through hollow wood. I closed it. Locked it. Sat in the corner of my apartment for hours. I tried recording the sound on my phone. Left it running near the mirror from 3 to 3:10 a.m. When I played it back, I didn't hear whistling. I heard myself, crying, and just before the file cut out, one word whispered through the static. "Unseal." I stopped answering phone calls. My family thinks I'm having a breakdown. Maybe I am. But what kind of breakdown leaves footprints on your ceiling? What kind of hallucination drags a brass key into your hand while you sleep? Last night, I recorded another voice memo, timestamped 3:03 a.m. When I played it back, I didn't hear myself this time. I heard the hotel lobby, the elevator chime, the old muzak hum, the shuffle of the concierge's shoes on linoleum, and layered beneath it, that melody, whistling from somewhere off mic, rising steadily. Then the audio cut with a high-pitched gasp, like something taking its first breath. Today I called Riverside. The hotel has been demolished. 6 days ago. I checked 3 times. It's on record. Demoed after unforeseen foundational issues caused a partial 3rd-floor collapse. Guess which room was at the epicenter? I drove to the site. Just rubble now. But even as I stood there, breathing in dust and disbelief, a sound reached me through the wind. Faint, high, whistling. I walked to the chain link fence, climbed halfway up for a better view, and I saw it. In the crater where 712 once stood, a door. Upright, wooden, perfectly preserved. Just the door, nothing else. And it was open. I couldn't see what was inside, but the melody spilling from it was the same one I'd been hearing for weeks. Except now, it was everywhere. People passed me on the street, humming it under their breath. A child skipped by, whistling the first 5 notes. Even the birds above seemed to chirp in rhythm with it. It's spreading, no longer bound to that cursed room. It's infecting, waking something, or many things. I raced home. I don't know what I expected. Sanctuary? Safety? Instead, my apartment door had changed again. No more numbers, just a mirror, mounted directly to the surface. When I stepped closer, I saw myself. Only, it wasn't a reflection anymore. It was another me, staring back, swaying gently, head cocked, lips pursed. I watched, frozen, as he began to whistle. And this time, I whistled back. Not because I chose to, because I had to. I felt my lips part, my lungs fill. The tune passed through me like blood, like memory, like home. After that, the mirror shimmered, wobbled, and I stepped through. I think. It's hard to say where I am now. My room looks the same, but it's too quiet. The air doesn't move. The clocks don't tick, and the mirror is gone. In its place, a door, identical to the one in the crater. Polished, wood grain, brass knob with a treble clef carved into it. It's closed for now, but I don't think it'll stay that way. I've begun to hear it creak at night, and something whistles on the other side. Sometimes in my voice, sometimes in someone else's, sometimes many voices at once. Tonight, I pressed my ear to it, and what I heard didn't sound like a tune anymore. It sounded like breathing, like something learning, practicing, getting ready. It's not just waiting to be opened. It's waiting to open me. The door opened at 3:03 a.m. sharp. Not with a bang, not even a creak. It glided, silently, as if the air itself parted to let it through. I didn't open it. It opened itself. And on the other side, not my hallway, not the street, not the world I remembered. It was the hotel lobby, perfect, pristine, like I'd stepped back in time. Everything gleamed, but in a way that felt wrong. Too polished, like reality had been cleaned of all its imperfections. The lobby was empty, save for one thing. At the far end stood the concierge desk, and behind it someone waited. Their back was turned, head bowed. The same uniform I used to wear, neat and pressed, with the exact same name tag. My name. I called out. My voice sounded small, swallowed by the space. The figure turned slowly, and I saw me, but not as I am. Not tired, not afraid. This version smiled with cracked lips, revealing perfect rows of teeth. And when he spoke, it was my voice, but layered with others. Welcome back. Check-in time. Forever. I turned to run. The door behind me was gone. In its place stood a long hallway lined with mirrors. Each reflected a different version of me. Some younger, some older, some with black voids for eyes, others with thread stitched across their mouths. One banged its head against the glass, over and over, leaving red smears in its wake. I ran down the hallway, my footsteps echoing far too loudly. The whistling started again, but now it came from inside each mirror. A chorus of me's, all piping that cursed tune in different keys. And behind the sound, faint and hungry, came something crawling. Not walking, crawling. A wet scrape, a hiss, a drag of thread across tile. I darted through a door at the end of the hall and slammed it behind me. The room I entered was familiar. Room 712, exactly as I'd first seen it. Bare floorboards, peeling wallpaper, soot-smeared mirror. Except now the mirror was filled, packed with faces. Mine, each one pressed against the glass, fogging it, watching me. Dozens of me's, and in the center stood the faceless figure again. No eyes, no mouth, just 3 holes. And from those holes came that godforsaken whistle. Soft, rhythmic, and then it lifted its hand and pointed to me. The moment it did, my body froze. Muscles locked, breath stalled, my lips moved, and I joined in, whistling. Perfect pitch, perfect timing. It felt like being drained, like each note pulled another memory from me. I forgot my birthday, my mother's face, the name of my childhood dog. Each note, a little more of me gone, until all that remained was the tune. I woke up on the floor of my apartment, or at least a place shaped like it. The ceiling was wrong, too low. The shadows didn't move. The air smelled of plaster, mildew, and breath. I crawled to the mirror in the bathroom. It was cracked in the shape of a treble clef. When I touched it, it rippled. And on the other side, my reflection smiled. My real self didn't. But the mirror version raised a finger to its lips and whistled one last time. Then the reflection leaned forward and whispered, "Your shift has begun." They've given me a uniform. It fits perfectly, tailored to a version of me I don't remember being. The mirror in my apartment is now a window, and every night at 3:03 a.m., someone knocks on the other side. Sometimes it's a stranger. Sometimes it's me. They whistle. I answer. That's the job now. I don't leave the room. I don't sleep. I just stand behind the glass, watching as the melody spreads. Through speakers, through dreams, through open doors no one remembers unlocking. If you hear it, don't whistle back. If you see me, don't smile. And if a key appears on your nightstand, burn it. Because once room 712 finds you, there's no checking out.